Hey, tonight we're going to talk about the time when Rome abandoned Britain and a new hero rose from the chaos. Spoiler, it wasn't exactly like the shining knights and magic swords you might have heard about. You think your year was bad? Let me tell you about Britain in the year 407. If you're enjoying these bedtime stories about weird history, I'd really appreciate a like or subscribe. I'm curious where you're listening from. Drop a comment with your location and what time it is there. Is it actually bedtime? Now, find a cozy spot, take a slow deep breath and let your body sink into comfort as we journey back in time together. The cold seeps through your worn woolen tunic as you wake before dawn. Your back aches from another night on the straw mattress, and the rough wool blanket scratches against your skin as you push it aside. The familiar smell of damp earth and wood smoke fills your nostrils. Outside, a thin mist hangs over the settlement, and in the distance, you can just make out the crumbling stone walls of what was once a grand Roman villa. You're not old enough to remember when the Romans were here in full force. That was your grandfather's time. But the stories have been passed down, how the great emperor Constantine III gathered the last few Roman troops from these islands in the year 407, how the mighty empire that had ruled Britain for nearly 4 centuries simply left. Good news, the harsh Roman taxes disappeared. Bad news, so did their protection. Your toes curl against the packed earth floor as you rise, muscles stiff from the chill. The settlement is beginning to stir around you, the low murmur of voices, the clatter of wooden bowls, a child crying somewhere nearby. Your stomach growls, reminding you that the winter stores are running low. Spring is coming, but not soon enough. You duck through the low doorway of your roundhouse, the familiar smell of last night's hearth fire still lingering in your clothes. The sky is lightening to a pale grey in the east. Your breath forms clouds in the cold morning air as you make your way to the communal well, wooden buckets swinging in your hand. The other villagers nod in greeting, their faces etched with the same worry you feel. Romans gone, raiders coming. That's been the rhythm of life since you were a child. Saxons from across the sea, Picts from the north. Each year they grow bolder, taking more, burning what they can't carry. You join the line at the well, bucket in hand. The worn rope feels rough against your palms as you lower your bucket into the dark water below. The splash echoes up from the depths, and you begin the work of hauling it back up, the weight making your arms tremble with effort. "They've been seen again," whispers the woman next to you, her voice barely audible. "Saxon ships, 3 of them, just beyond the bay." Your heart quickens. 3 ships could mean 100 warriors or more. Your settlement has barely 30 men who could fight, and most with nothing more than farming tools as weapons. The meeting stone, midday, she adds, before taking her filled bucket and hurrying away. The meeting stone sits at the centre of your settlement, a massive slab of granite hauled from the hills by your ancestors long before even the Romans came. Once your people made sacrifices here to old gods with names that are now whispered rather than shouted. The Romans brought their own gods, and later their Christ. Now, with the Romans gone, some have returned to the old ways, while others cling to the Christian faith that remains. You spend the morning helping to repair the wooden palisade that surrounds your settlement. Your hands are raw from the rough timber, splinters embedding themselves in your calloused palms. The work is hard, but necessary. Without Roman soldiers to protect you, these simple defences are all that stand between your community and the chaos beyond. By midday, you join the gathering at the meeting stone. The entire settlement is there, nearly 200 people crowded together, their faces tight with anxiety. Children cling to their mothers' skirts, sensing the tension. Even the dogs seem subdued, crouching low near their master's feet. The council of elders stands upon the stone, 5 men and 2 women, the oldest and wisest among you. But today there's someone else with them. A stranger. He stands tall, taller than most men you've seen. His dark hair is cropped short in the Roman style, but his beard is full in the manner of your people. He wears a leather cuirass over a deep blue tunic, and at his hip hangs a sword. Not a crude farming blade beaten into shape by the local smith, but a proper soldier's sword with a pommel that catches the weak sunlight. Most striking of all are his eyes, clear and grey as the winter sea, scanning the crowd with a gaze that seems to look through you rather than at you. The eldest of your council, a white-bearded man named Gareth, raises his hands for silence. People of Caer Cadwy, he calls, using the old British name for your settlement. We face a grave threat. Saxon raiders approach our shores more than we have seen before. A murmur of fear ripples through the crowd. A child begins to cry, quickly hushed by its mother. But today, Gareth continues, fate has brought us a defender. This is Artorius, son of Uther, commander of the dragon cavalry under the last Roman governor. The stranger, Artorius, steps forward. His movements are deliberate, controlled, a soldier's economy of motion. When he speaks, his voice carries across the gathering with surprising clarity. I was born of this land, he says, though I served Rome. My mother was of the Dobuni tribe, my father a Roman officer. He pauses, looking out at your faces. Rome has abandoned Britain, but I have not. I have ridden from Glavum in the south to Eboracum in the north. Everywhere, our people face the same threat. Saxons, Angles, Jutes from across the sea, Picts from the north, Irish from the west. A cold wind gusts across the meeting ground, making the banners snap and sending a shiver down your spine that has nothing to do with the temperature. Alone, each settlement will fall, Artorius continues. Together, we might stand. I have gathered warriors from settlements across the land, men who remember Roman discipline but fight with British heart. We call ourselves the Dragon Cavalry, after the dragon standard of the old Roman cavalry units. We offer protection, but we need your support, food, shelter, and men willing to train and fight. The crowd stirs. Some nod in agreement, others look sceptical. A man near the front, the blacksmith Brennus, calls out, "How do we know you're not just another warlord looking to replace Roman taxes with your own?" A fair question. Since the Romans left, more than one self-proclaimed leader has come, promising protection but delivering tyranny. Artorius doesn't flinch. You don't, but I swear by Christ and all the old gods that I seek only to defend our land, not to rule it. When the danger has passed, I and my men will leave you to govern yourselves as you see fit. He reaches to his side and draws his sword in one fluid motion. The blade gleams, even in the weak light. It's fine Roman steel, far superior to the iron weapons your smiths can forge. Artorius turns the sword and drives it point first into the earth beside the meeting stone. I offer my sword in your defense, he says. Whether you accept is your choice. The council confers in hushed tones while the crowd waits. Finally, Gareth steps forward again. We will provide what you ask, he announces. Food, shelter, and 10 men of fighting age who choose to join you. Artorius nods, pulls his sword from the earth, and sheathes it in one smooth motion. We make camp on the old Roman road, he says. Those who wish to join should come at dawn with whatever weapons they have. We will provide what else is needed. That night, sleep doesn't come easily. You lie on your straw mattress, listening to the wind rattling the thatch above. The settlement buzzes with nervous energy despite the late hour. In the roundhouse next to yours, 2 brothers argue. One wants to join Artorius, the other thinks it folly to trust a stranger. You turn onto your side, pulling the rough blanket tighter around your shoulders. The straw crackles beneath you. Through a gap in the doorway covering, you can see a sliver of night sky, stars glittering coldly. Will Artorias truly protect your people, or is he just another warlord rising from the chaos Rome left behind? Dawn arrives with a pale, watery light filtering through the mist. You rise early, curiosity pulling you toward the old Roman road where Artorias and his men have made camp. The road itself is a marvel, straight as an arrow, paved with stone, cutting through the landscape with the certainty that only Rome could impose on the world. Now weeds grow between the stones, and in places, local farmers have taken blocks for their own buildings. The camp comes into view as you crest a small rise. Your breath catches in your throat. This is no ragged band of desperate men, but a disciplined military force. About 60 warriors are already up and training in the open field beside the road. They move in formation, shields locked together, advancing and retreating at shouted commands. Their shields are oval, painted red with a white dragon device. Not the eagles of Rome, but something new. Something of Britain. Behind them, horses are picketed in neat rows, not the shaggy ponies your people use for farm work, but tall, powerful mounts bred for war. Men groom them, check their hooves, adjust saddles that look different from any you've seen, higher in the front and back, with stirrups hanging down the sides. Artorias strides among them, stopping to correct a man's stance here. Demonstrate a sword technique there. In the daylight, you can see his armour more clearly. The leather cuirass is reinforced with bronze plates at the shoulders and chest, worn over a mail shirt that must have cost a king's ransom. His sword, now that you can see it properly, has a simple crossguard and a pommel shaped like a dragon's head. A group from your settlement approaches the camp cautiously. 12 men in all, more than the 10 Artorias requested. They carry an assortment of weapons, hunting spears, wood-cutting axes, a few iron knives. One has a sword, an old Roman gladius passed down through his family. Its blade nicked but still serviceable. Artorias meets them at the edge of the camp. You're too far away to hear his words, but you see him inspect each man, testing the strength of their arms, looking into their eyes as if measuring their courage. 2 he sends back, a boy who can't be more than 14 and an older man with a limp from an old injury. The rest he welcomes with a clasp of the arm, directing them to a quartermaster who begins issuing equipment. Simple tunics in dark blue, leather caps reinforced with bronze, and small round shields. You watch for hours as Artorias' men drill your neighbours in the basics of warfare, how to stand, how to hold a shield, how to thrust with a spear rather than wildly swinging it. The training is hard, and more than once a man falls, exhausted, only to be pulled back to his feet by one of Artorias' veterans. By midday, they look less like farmers and more like the beginnings of soldiers. As the sun reaches its peak, Artorias calls a halt to the training. The men break formation, moving to a cook fire where a simple meal of porridge and dried meat is being distributed. You're about to turn back to the settlement when you notice Artorias looking in your direction. He raises a hand, beckoning you closer. Your heart pounds as you approach. Up close, Artorias is even more imposing. Scars mark his forearms and one crosses his cheek. Not the marks of a man who directs battles from afar, but one who fights in the front lines. You've been watching since dawn, he says. His voice is deep, but not harsh. Do you wish to join us? You swallow hard. I'm not a warrior, you admit. Neither were they, a week ago, he gestures to his men. Neither was I once. You find that hard to believe, looking at him now. I was raised on a farm near Glevum, he continues, seeing your skepticism. My father was a cavalry officer, yes, but he died when I was young. I learned to plough before I learned to fight. He looks out over the training field. The Saxons don't care if you're a farmer or a soldier. They'll kill you just the same. Better to be a farmer who can fight than one who can only die. His words sink in, heavy with truth. You think of your home, your family, the life you've built, all of it vulnerable to the raiders who come each year. I don't just need men who can swing a sword, Artorius adds. I need people who know the land, who can read the weather, find food, care for horses. An army is more than its warriors. A call comes from the camp. One of Artorius's lieutenants needs his attention. Artorius nods to you. Think on it, he says, then turns and strides away, his blue cloak billowing behind him. That evening, as the sun sets, casting long shadows across your settlement, you sit with your family around the hearth in your roundhouse. The fire crackles, casting dancing light on the wattle and daub walls. Your younger sister serves a thin stew of barley and turnips, stretching the last of the winter stores. Your father, his hands gnarled from years of working the land, breaks the coarse bread and passes it around. Artorius spoke to you, he says. Not a question. News travels fast in a small settlement. You nod, tearing off a piece of bread. It's dense and heavy, nothing like the fine white loaves the Romans once brought. Will you go with him? Your mother asks, her voice quiet but steady. She's survived 3 Saxon raids. The last one left a scar across her shoulder where a Saxon axe nearly took her arm. He says he needs more than just warriors, you reply. People who know the land can find food, care for horses. Your father grunts. Romans always need something. They come, they take, they leave. Even half-Roman generals like this Artorius. The Romans are gone, father, your sister says, surprising you with her boldness. And Artorius is offering protection, not taking taxes. For now, your father mutters, but there's less conviction in his voice than there might have been. He too has seen what happens to settlements that can't defend themselves. That night, sleep comes fitfully. The weight of decision presses down on you like a physical thing. Join Artorius and leave behind everything you know, or stay and hope that your settlement's meagre defences will be enough when the Saxon longships appear on the horizon. You drift into uneasy dreams where Roman roads stretch endlessly through dark forests and dragons fly beneath storm clouds, their scales gleaming red and white in flashes of lightning. Morning arrives with a decision already formed in your mind. You pack quickly: a spare tunic, a leather belt, a wooden bowl and spoon, a flint and steel for making fire, your knife, sharp enough for skinning rabbits but hardly a weapon of war, a small wooden figurine of a horse that your grandfather carved for you when you were a child. Your mother watches from the doorway as you gather your things. She doesn't try to dissuade you. She understands necessity in a way that only those who have survived hardship can. When you're done, she hands you a small leather pouch on a cord. For protection, she says. You open it to find a small Christian cross carved from yew wood alongside a tiny figure of Epona, the horse goddess your people worshipped before the Romans brought their gods, old ways and new, side by side, like Britain itself. Your father is not there to see you off. He left at dawn to check his trap lines in the forest. His absence speaks volumes. Your sister hugs you fiercely, then pushes something into your hands, a small loaf of bread, still warm from the morning fire, made with the last of the good flour she'd been saving. The walk to Artorius's camp takes less than an hour. The morning mist is burning off, promising a clear day ahead. Birds sing in the hedgerows, and in a field nearby, a farmer drives his oxen, preparing the ground for spring planting. Life continues, even in uncertain times. The camp is already bustling when you arrive. Men drill in formation, horses are being groomed and exercised, and smoke rises from cook fires. A group of new recruits, including several from your settlement, stand nervously to one side, awaiting instructions. You join them feeling your heart race with a mixture of fear and excitement. A hard-faced man with a scar running through his left eyebrow looks you and the others over. Artorius takes all who come willingly, he says, his voice gruff. But not all stay. The training is hard, the food poor, and the danger real. If you're looking for glory, you've come to the wrong place. We fight to survive, nothing more. He assigns each of you to different parts of the camp based on your skills. Given your knowledge of local plants and experience caring for your settlement's ponies, you're sent to the horse lines, where a grizzled old cavalryman named Bedwyr takes you under his wing. "These aren't farm nags," he tells you, patting the neck of a tall bay stallion. "These are war horses, bred from Roman cavalry mounts and native stock. They need special care." He shows you how to check hooves for stones, how to recognize the early signs of lameness, how to adjust the strange new saddles with their high cantles and stirrups. Artorius brought the idea back from his travels east, Bedwyr explains when you ask about the stirrups. They let a rider stand in the saddle while striking downward. More power in the blow, and they keep you mounted when you hit something. The day passes in a blur of new information and hard work. Your hands, already calloused from farm labour, develop new sore spots from grooming tools and leather straps. By evening, every muscle aches, and you wonder if you've made a terrible mistake. As the sun sets, Artorius himself walks through the camp, speaking briefly with each new recruit. When he reaches you, he nods in recognition. "You came," he says simply. "I did. Bedwyr says you have a good hand with the horses." You shrug, embarrassed by the praise. "I've worked with animals all my life," Artorius nods. "A valuable skill. Many warriors can swing a sword. Few can keep a horse sound during a long campaign." He looks at you thoughtfully. "Do you know the land west of here? The old forest and the marsh beyond?" "Yes," you reply. "I've hunted there since I was a boy." "Good. Tomorrow you'll ride with the scouts. We need to know the land better than our enemies if we're to defend it." Before you can respond, a commotion breaks out at the edge of the camp. A rider gallops in, his horse lathered with sweat, its sides heaving. The man slides from the saddle, nearly falling in his haste. "Saxon ships," he shouts, 5 of them, landing at the bay below Caer Morion. The camp erupts into controlled chaos. Warriors don armour and check weapons. Horses are brought forward, saddles tightened. Artorius strides to the centre of the camp, his voice cutting through the noise. "First and second squadrons, mount up. Third squadron, remain here to guard the camp and continue training the new men." He turns to Bedwyr. "How many of the new recruits can ride?" Bedwyr scans the group, his eyes settling on you. "This one can. He's green but has a good seat." Artorius nods. "Give him the dun mare. She's steady in a fight." He looks at you, his grey eyes intense. "Stay close to Bedwyr. Watch and learn. If we're separated, make for the high ground above the bay. Do you understand?" Your mouth is dry, your heart hammering against your ribs, but you manage to nod. "Yes." "Good." Artorius clasps your shoulder briefly, then turns away, calling orders to his other officers. Bedwyr leads you to a sturdy, dun-coloured mare, already saddled. "She's called Awen," he says, giving you a leg up. "She knows her business better than you do, so trust her instincts." The horse feels enormous beneath you, much larger than the ponies you're used to riding. The saddle is strange, with its high front and back, but the stirrups help you feel secure. Within minutes, 40 riders are assembled, Artorias at their head, mounted on a magnificent white stallion. He wears his full armour now, and on his head is a helmet with cheek guards and a crest of horsehair dyed red. In the fading light, with his blue cloak billowing behind him, he looks like something from another world, half Roman, half something older and wilder. "For Britain!" he shouts, raising his sword. "For Britain!" the warriors echo, their voices a single roar. Then you're moving, the horses breaking into a trot, then a canter, heading down the old Roman road toward the sea. The wind rushes past your ears, carrying the scent of salt and the distant smell of burning. Your new life has begun, riding with the man who will one day be remembered as Arthur, King of the Britons. The steady rhythm of hooves on the Roman road lulls you into an almost dreamlike state. Despite the urgency of your mission, there's something hypnotic about the movement of the horse beneath you, the synchronized sound of the cavalry column moving as one. Your body aches from the unaccustomed posture, but you find yourself adjusting, mimicking the more experienced riders ahead. The road winds through hills covered in oak and ash, descending gradually toward the coast. As you crest a rise, the smell of smoke grows stronger, and in the distance you can see an orange glow against the darkening sky. Artorias raises his hand, and the column slows to a walk. "Quiet now," Bedwyr murmurs beside you. "Sound carries at night." Ahead, Artorias confers with the scout who brought the news. They speak in hushed tones, pointing toward the glow on the horizon. After a moment, Artorias gestures, and the column divides into two groups. The larger group continues down the road, while Artorias leads your smaller contingent, including you and Bedwyr, onto a narrow track that branches off to the right. "He's leading us around to come at them from behind," Bedwyr explains softly. "The main force will draw their attention while we strike from the rear." Your mouth goes dry at the thought. Until today, you've never even held a proper weapon, and now you're riding into battle with men who've spent their lives training for war. As if reading your thoughts, Bedwyr reaches over and pats your arm. "Stay close to me. Your job tonight is to watch and learn, not to fight. If things go badly, take Owen and ride for the high ground, back toward camp." The track narrows, forcing the riders into single file. Low branches whip past, forcing you to duck. The forest is eerily quiet. No bird song, no rustle of small animals in the undergrowth. Even the wind seems to have died away, leaving only the soft thud of hooves on earth and the occasional jingle of harness. After what feels like hours but is probably less than one, Artorias halts the column. Ahead, the trees thin out, revealing a stretch of open land that slopes down to the sea. In the bay below, illuminated by their own torches and the fires they've set, you can see the Saxons. 5 longships are pulled up on the shingle beach, their dragon-headed prows looming in the flickering light. Around them, perhaps 100 warriors mill about, some still unloading supplies from the ships, others already starting to form a defensive perimeter. Beyond them, a small fishing village burns, sending sparks and smoke into the night sky. Artorias dismounts and motions for his officers to do the same. You stay on Owen, as Bedwyr instructed, but strain to hear as they confer in whispers. "They've only just landed," you hear Artorias say. "They haven't had time to establish a proper camp. We hit them now, while they're disorganized." Another man, whose name you don't know, points toward the burning village. "Any survivors?" Artorias shakes his head grimly. "Unlikely, but we'll check once the Saxons are dealt with." He turns to a broad-shouldered warrior with a magnificent red beard. "Kai, take 20 men and circle around to the east side of the beach. Wait for my signal, 3 horn blasts, then charge. I'll lead the rest down the western approach." The red-bearded man nods and begins selecting warriors for his group. Bedwyr is among them. He looks up at you before he goes. "Stay with the horses," he says firmly. "Keep them calm and ready. If any Saxons break through and come this way, don't try to fight. Just ride. Understand?" You nod, your throat too tight to speak. Bedwyr squeezes your knee once, then leads his horse away, following Kai and the others as they disappear into the darkness. Those remaining tie their horses to trees, leaving you to watch over them. Artorius approaches briefly before he leaves. "Courage," he says simply, looking up at you. In the dim light, his eyes seem to reflect the stars. The first night is always the hardest. Then he's gone, leading his men silently down the slope toward the unsuspecting Saxons. Alone with the horses, time seems to stretch. The animals are restless, sensing the tension in the air. You move among them, stroking necks, murmuring soothing words as your father taught you to do during thunderstorms. Your own heart races, but the familiar task helps steady your nerves. From your position on the ridge, you have a clear view of the bay. The Saxons continue their work, oblivious to the danger closing in from two sides. Their voices carry on the night air, harsh and guttural, punctuated by occasional laughter. They think themselves safe, having destroyed the only settlement nearby. They don't know about Artorius and his dragon cavalry. Suddenly, the night is split by 3 clear notes from a horn. The signal. Even before the echo dies away, war cries erupt from both sides of the beach as Artorius's men charge from their hiding places. The Saxons are caught completely by surprise. Many are cut down before they can even reach for their weapons. Others form hasty defensive circles, back to back, their round shields creating walls of wood and iron. But Artorius's cavalry has the advantage of momentum and higher ground. They crash into the Saxon lines like a wave breaking on rocks. Even from a distance you can pick out Artorius himself, his white horse and red-crested helmet visible in the light of the burning village. He moves through the battle with deadly grace, his sword rising and falling in smooth arcs. Where he goes, Saxon warriors fall. The battle is chaotic, brutal, and mercifully short. The Saxons, though fierce, are outnumbered and outmaneuvered. Some try to flee back to their ships, only to find Kai and his men waiting for them. Others break away, running for the safety of the darkness beyond the beach. A small group of these fleeing warriors, perhaps 5 or 6, are headed in your direction. They haven't seen you yet, but they're coming straight up the track toward the horses. Your heart pounds in your chest as you realize you'll have to move. If you stay, they'll find you. If they find you, you'll die. With shaking hands, you untie Artorius's white stallion and the other officers' mounts. You're about to mount Owen when you remember Bedwyr's words. If any Saxons break through and come this way, don't try to fight, just ride. But if you ride away now, taking only your own horse, the Saxons will capture the others. Artorius's prized white stallion, the officers' mounts. The dragon cavalry would lose their most valuable horses, all because you fled. Making a split-second decision, you grab a fallen branch, not much of a weapon, but better than nothing, and swing yourself onto Owen's back. Instead of riding away from the approaching Saxons, you ride parallel to them, staying just inside the tree line where they can't see you. Then, when they're almost level with the tethered horses, you burst from the trees behind them, whooping and hollering as loudly as you can, waving the branch over your head. The Saxons, already frightened and disoriented from the battle, see a mounted figure charging at them from the darkness. They don't stop to count how many riders there are, or to notice that you're armed with nothing more dangerous than a stick. They scatter, running back down the hill toward the beach, and straight into the arms of Artorius's men who are now mopping up the last resistance. Your heart is pounding so hard you think it might burst from your chest. You can't believe what you just did or that it worked. You sit on Owen, trembling with fear and exhilaration as the sounds of battle below fade into the moans of the wounded and the triumphant calls of Artorius's warriors. After a few minutes, riders approach from below. Bedwyr is in the lead, his face streaked with blood. Whether his own or someone else's, you can't tell in the darkness. "You're alive," he says, sounding genuinely relieved. "We saw Saxons heading this way. They came, you admit, but I scared them off. You don't mention how close you came to simply fleeing." Bedwyr studies you for a moment, then nods approvingly. "Quick thinking. Artorius will be pleased you saved the horses." More riders arrive, leading captured Saxon horses laden with plunder from the village. Among them is Artorius himself, his armour spattered with blood, but his posture still straight and proud. "Casualties?" he asks one of his officers. "3 dead, 7 wounded, 2 seriously," comes the reply. "Saxon losses much heavier, at least 40 dead, twice that captured or wounded. The rest fled into the forest." "They won't get far," Artorius says grimly. "This isn't their land. They don't know the paths or the hiding places." He turns to another officer. "Gawain, take 10 men and search the village for survivors." As the night wears on, you help tend to the wounded, both Artorius's men and the Saxon captives. Your knowledge of healing herbs, learned from your mother, proves useful. One of Artorius's warriors, a deep cut in his thigh, watches with surprise as you clean his wound with a poultice of yarrow leaves. "Where did you learn that?" he asks through gritted teeth. "My mother," you reply, binding the wound with a strip of clean linen. "She says yarrow stops bleeding and prevents corruption." The warrior grunts. "Smart woman, your mother." Dawn is breaking by the time all the wounded are treated, and the dead, both British and Saxon, are laid out on the beach. Artorius has ordered the Saxon ships burned, their hulls already blackening as flames lick up the sides. The surviving Saxon warriors, about 60 in all, sit under guard, their hands bound behind their backs. Artorius walks among his men, speaking quietly to each one, checking wounds, offering words of praise or comfort. When he reaches you, he stops, studying your face in the growing light. "Bedwyr tells me you saved our horses," he says. "That was brave. Many would have fled." You look down, embarrassed. "I almost did." "But you didn't," Artorius points out. "That's what matters. Courage isn't about not feeling fear. It's about acting despite it." He gestures toward the captured Saxons. "Do you know what will happen to them?" You shake your head. In the old days, under Rome, they would be executed or sold as slaves, Artorius says, but we need every able body to work the land and strengthen our defences. Those who swear loyalty will be allowed to settle under watch in designated areas. Those who refuse, he shrugs, they can take their chances in the forest. You're surprised by this mercy. After seeing what the Saxons did to the fishing village, you expected harsher treatment. "We can't afford to waste lives," Artorius explains, seeing your expression, "and hate only breeds more hate. The Saxons aren't going to stop coming. Eventually, we'll have to find a way to live together or we'll destroy each other completely." He looks out over the bay, where the rising sun glints on the water and turns the smoke from the burning ships into golden columns. "Besides," he adds quietly, "my mother's people were once invaders too, long ago, before they became Britons." For the first time, you begin to understand why people follow this man. It's not just his skill in battle or his Roman education, it's his vision. A Britain where the old and new can coexist, where enemies might become allies, where something lasting can be built from the ruins Rome left behind. As you ride back to camp later that day, sore and exhausted but alive, you realize that you've become part of something larger than yourself. The man riding at the head of the column might not be the magical king of later legends, with his sword pulled from a stone and his round table of perfect knights. But he is something perhaps more remarkable. a real man with real flaws and real wisdom, trying to forge a future from a fractured past. And you, no longer just a farmer's child from a small settlement, have taken your first steps into that future alongside him. Your eyelids grow heavy as the rhythmic swaying of your horse lulls you towards sleep, even as you ride. The events of the night replay in your mind, the terror, the courage, the small victory. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, new lessons in this strange new life you've chosen. But for now, you've survived. For now, that's enough. Sleep calls to you, promising rest for your weary body and troubled mind. As consciousness begins to slip away, you hear Bedwyer's voice, distant as if in a dream. Rest while you can, young one. The real work begins tomorrow. The summer sun beats down on your neck as you ride beside Bedwyr, your eyes scanning the rolling hills ahead. 3 months have passed since that first battle on the beach, and you hardly recognize yourself anymore. Your once soft hands are now calloused and strong, your skin darkened by constant exposure to the elements. The leather jerkin you wear feels like a second skin, and the weight of the short sword at your hip no longer seems strange. You've become a scout for Artorius's growing army, your knowledge of the local terrain proving more valuable than your fighting skills, though those too have improved under Bedwyr's relentless training. Today, you're patrolling the borderlands between what was once the Roman province of Britannia Prima and the wilder territories to the west. "Look there," Bedwyr says quietly, pointing to a distant smudge of smoke rising against the blue sky. Too much for a cooking fire, too little for a burning village. You nod, having learned to read such signs over the past months. Charcoal burners, maybe? Or a small encampment? Let's find out. Bedwyr turns his horse, leading you down a narrow deer track that winds through a stand of ancient oaks. The forest envelops you, sunlight filtering through the canopy in dappled patterns that dance across your arms. The rich scent of damp earth and green growing things fills your nostrils, a welcome change from the sweat and leather smell of the camp. As you ride, you reflect on how much has changed since you joined Artorius. The Dragon Cavalry is no longer a small band of warriors, but a force of over 300 mounted fighters, supplemented by twice that number of foot soldiers. Word of Artorius's victories against the Saxon raiders has spread, drawing men from settlements across the old province. They come seeking protection, revenge, or simply a purpose in these uncertain times. What began as a mobile unit has become something more permanent. Artorius established his main camp at an abandoned Roman fort called Vindolanda near the great stone wall the Emperor Hadrian built centuries ago to keep the northern tribes at bay. The fort's stone buildings provide shelter, and its walls offer protection for the growing community of fighters, craftspeople, and families that have gathered there. The smoke grows clearer as you emerge from the forest onto a hillside overlooking a small valley. Below, beside a stream, stands a cluster of wattle and daub huts surrounding a larger wooden structure. People move about between the buildings, tending gardens and animals. Not raiders or soldiers, but ordinary folk trying to carve out a life away from the chaos of the coastlands. Britons, Bedwyr says with relief, not Saxons. You continue down the slope, approaching cautiously nonetheless. These days, strangers of any kind are met with suspicion. As you draw closer, you see a half-dozen men grab spears and form a rough line in front of the settlement. Their weapons are crude, farming tools repurposed for war, but they stand ready to defend their homes. Bedwyr raises his empty hands in the universal gesture of peace. "We come as friends," he calls out in British, the native tongue that the Romans never managed to eradicate despite centuries of occupation. "We ride with Artorius Dux Bellorum." The name produces an immediate reaction. The men lower their spears slightly, and whispered conversations break out among them. Finally, an older man with a grey-streaked beard steps forward. "We've heard of this Artorius," he says cautiously. "They say he fights the Saxon wolves." "He does," Bedwyr confirms, "and we seek others who would join that fight." The man studies you both, his weathered face revealing nothing. "I am Bran," he says finally, "elder of this settlement. Come, break bread with us, and we will speak further." You dismount, leading your horses to a wooden hitching post near the stream. Children peek out from behind huts, watching you with wide, curious eyes. A few of the bolder ones edge closer, reaching out to touch your leather armor and the dragon emblem stitched onto your blue cloak. Inside the large wooden hall, you're seated at a rough-hewn table. A woman brings wooden bowls filled with a thick stew of barley and wild boar, along with dense bread still warm from the hearth. Your stomach growls at the smell. It's been days since you've eaten anything but travel rations of dried meat and hard biscuit. As you eat, Bran explains their situation. "We fled from the eastern shores when the Saxons burned our village last winter. 20 families started the journey. 12 made it here." His voice is matter-of-fact, but the grief behind his words is palpable. "We chose this valley for its spring and good soil, but mostly because it's far from the coast where the raiders land." "No place is truly safe anymore," Bedwyr says grimly. "The Saxons grow bolder each season. They're no longer content with raiding. They seek land to settle." Bran nods, unsurprised. "So we've heard. That's why we've built this hall with thick walls and a strong door, a place to shelter if danger comes." You look around with newfound appreciation. What you took for a simple meeting hall is actually a cleverly designed refuge. The walls are twice as thick as necessary for mere shelter, and the single door is reinforced with iron bands. Small windows set high in the walls would allow defenders to shoot arrows while remaining protected. "You've planned well," you say, impressed by their foresight. Bran shrugs. "We learn or we die. The Romans taught us that much before they abandoned us." Artorius offers another choice, Bedwyr says, "not just hiding and hoping, but standing together against the invaders." "And what does this Artorius want in return?" Bran asks, skepticism clear in his voice. "We have little to give." Food for his army, men who can fight, skills of those who cannot. Artorius builds not just a fighting force, but a community. Bedwyr tears off a piece of bread. He doesn't seek to rule as the Romans did, extracting taxes and bending knees. He seeks allies who will defend their own land alongside him. A younger man at the table leans forward eagerly. Is it true he was trained by the last Roman cavalry, that he rides a white horse and carries a sword that can cut through Saxon mail like cloth? You hide a smile. In just a few months, stories about Artorius have already grown into legends, spreading from settlement to settlement, gaining embellishments with each telling. Artorius was indeed trained in Roman military tactics, Bedwyr answers carefully, and he does ride a white stallion in battle. As for his sword, he glances at you. It's fine steel, well crafted, but its power comes from the arm that wields it, not magic. Bran considers this, running a hand through his beard. How many men does he have? Where are they based? What are his plans for when winter comes? The questions continue through the meal, practical concerns from a man who has already lost one home and won't risk another without good reason. Bedwyr answers honestly, neither exaggerating Artorius's strength nor minimizing the challenges ahead. By the time you've finished eating, the sun has begun its descent toward the western hills. Bran stands, stretching his back. "I must consult with the other elders before giving you an answer. Stay the night with us. We'll speak again in the morning." You're given space in a small hut normally used for storing grain. The floor is hard-packed earth covered with fresh straw, but after months of sleeping on the ground during patrols, it feels luxurious. Through the open doorway, you watch as the settlement prepares for evening. Women tend cooking fires while men return from the fields with tools over their shoulders. Children chase each other between the huts, their laughter a reminder of what Artorias fights to protect. An old woman sits outside her dwelling, spinning wool on a drop spindle, her gnarled fingers working with surprising dexterity. In the centre of it all stands the wooden hall, its shadow lengthening as the sun sinks lower. Later, as twilight deepens into true darkness, you join the community in the hall for the evening meal. Tallow candles and a central hearth provide warm, flickering light that turns everything golden. The atmosphere is different now, less guarded, more festive. Someone produces a wooden flute and another brings out a small drum. Music fills the hall and soon people are dancing, their movements quick and light despite the day's labour. You sit beside Bedwyr, watching the celebration. They have so little, you observe quietly, yet they find reason to dance. Bedwyr takes a long drink from his wooden cup. That's why we'll win in the end, he says. The Saxons come for land and plunder. We fight for this. He gestures to the scene before you. Families together, children secure, elders honoured. Home. A young woman approaches, offering you a cup of something that smells strongly of honey and herbs. You accept gratefully, taking a careful sip. The mead is sweet, but carries a surprising kick that warms your chest. It's my grandmother's recipe, she says, seeing your reaction. She says the Romans brought the method, but we improved it with our own herbs. This pattern, Roman foundations adapted to British needs, seems to run through everything in this new world. Artorias himself embodies it, Roman military discipline blended with British determination and knowledge of the land. As the night deepens, the music slows and people begin to drift back to their homes. You're about to return to your sleeping place when Bran approaches. Come, he says, gesturing for you and Bedwyr to follow him outside. The night air is cool against your face after the warmth of the hall. Bran leads you to a small rise just beyond the settlement. Above, the sky is clear, stars scattered like salt across black velvet. In the distance, the landscape is bathed in silver moonlight, revealing rolling hills and dark patches of forest stretching to the horizon. Bran points to a flat-topped hill some distance away. Even in the moonlight, you can make out the geometric shape atop it, the remains of a Roman watchtower. My grandfather helped build that tower, Bran says. He was a stonemason trained by the Romans. He told me that when the last legion left, the commander promised they would return. His voice holds no bitterness, only a deep weariness. For a generation, our people waited, watching the Eastern Sea, but Rome never came back. He turns to face you both. Now this Artorias promises protection. How is he different? What happens when the fighting becomes too hard or a better opportunity arises elsewhere? Artorias is of Britain, Bedwyr says firmly. His mother was of the Dobuni tribe. This is his home, not some distant posting he can abandon. Bran nods slowly. I will send 5 men to see this army of his, to judge for themselves if he is worthy of our trust. If they return satisfied, we will consider an alliance. It's not the immediate commitment Bedwyr had hoped for, but it's a start. You've learned that trust is a rare commodity in these uncertain times, given cautiously and only after careful consideration. As you prepare to sleep, lying on the straw-covered floor of the storage hut, you find yourself thinking about home, the settlement you left behind months ago. Are your parents well? Has your sister married the blacksmith's son as she planned? Do they wonder about you or have news of your deeds with the dragon cavalry reached them? Sleep comes slowly, your mind too full of the past and future to easily surrender to rest. When you finally drift off, your dreams are a jumble of Roman towers, Saxon ships, and Artorias astride his white horse, leading an army that stretches beyond the horizon. Morning arrives, with the crowing of a rooster and the soft murmur of the settlement coming to life. You rise, muscles stiff from the previous day's long ride, and step outside to find Bedwyr already awake, checking the horses. "We leave within the hour," he tells you. "Bran has selected his men. They'll follow a day behind us." You nod, stretching to ease the tightness in your back. The eastern sky is painted in shades of pink and gold, promising another clear day. Nearby, women are already at the communal ovens, preparing the day's bread. The smell makes your stomach growl. After a simple breakfast of porridge sweetened with honey, you saddle your horses and prepare to depart. Bran and several others from the settlement gather to see you off. "Tell Artorius we will consider his offer carefully," Bran says, clasping Bedwyr's arm in farewell. "If he is truly the leader Britain needs in these dark times, he will have our support." "He is," Bedwyr says with quiet confidence. "You'll see." You mount up, settling into the now familiar saddle. As you turn to follow Bedwyr out of the settlement, you notice the young woman who offered you mead the night before, watching from beside one of the huts. She raises a hand in farewell, and you return the gesture, feeling an unexpected pang at leaving. This, too, is part of your new life. Brief connections made during the constant movement of war and diplomacy, places glimpsed but never truly known, people met but rarely seen again. Sometimes it makes you ache for the simplicity of your former life, where each day followed the predictable rhythms of farming and the faces around you remained constant. The journey back to Vindolanda takes 3 days, following a different route than the one you came by. Bedwyr uses every opportunity to teach you more about scouting, how to read tracks in soft earth, how to spot signs of human passage that most would miss, how to navigate by sun and stars when landmarks are unfamiliar. "You have a gift for this work," he tells you on the second night as you sit beside a small, carefully banked fire. You see details others overlook. Coming from Bedwyr, who rarely offers praise, the words warm you more than the fire. "I was always like that, even as a child," you admit. "My father used to say I spent too much time watching and not enough time working." Bedwyr snorts. Farmers, always concerned with what's right in front of them, but a good scout sees beyond the obvious, plans for what might come. Artorius values that more than another sword arm. On the afternoon of the 3rd day, you crest a hill and see Vindolanda spread out before you. The sight still impresses you, no matter how many times you return. The stone walls of the old Roman fort rise from the landscape, solid and reassuring. But it's what lies beyond those walls that truly amazes. The sprawling encampment that has grown around the fort, a small city of tents and wooden structures housing Artorius's growing force. Smoke rises from dozens of cook fires, and even from this distance you can hear the ring of hammers as blacksmiths work to repair armor and forge new weapons. In the open ground beyond the eastern wall, you can make out the orderly rows of warriors drilling with spears and shields, moving in the disciplined formations that Artorius insists upon. As you approach the main gate, the guards recognize Bedwyr and wave you through without challenge. Inside, the fort buzzes with activity. Women mend clothing and prepare food, children run errands between different parts of the camp, and everywhere men prepare for war. Sharpening blades, repairing leather straps on shields, exercising horses. You follow Bedwyr to the headquarters building, once the Principia of the Roman fort, now Artorius's command centre. Inside, the air is cooler, the thick stone walls providing relief from the summer heat. Maps cover a large table in the central room, weighted down at the corners with pieces of Roman statuary. Artorius himself stands at the table, deep in conversation with several of his officers. He looks up as you enter, recognition lighting his grey eyes. "Bedwyr," he greets, "and our young scout. What news from the west?" While Bedwyr gives his report detailing the settlement you found and Bran's cautious response, you study Artorius. The months of constant campaigning have left their mark on him. New lines crease the corners of his eyes and a healing cut runs along his jawline. Yet he stands straight as ever, his presence commanding the room without apparent effort. When Bedwyr finishes, Artorius nods thoughtfully. Good. Every alliance strengthens us, no matter how small. We need their food as much as their fighters. He turns to a red-haired man you recognize as Kai, his most trusted lieutenant. What of our eastern patrols? Kai's expression darkens. 3 more Saxon ships landed near Dubry 2 days ago. Different clan markings than the ones we've seen before. They're spreading word among the existing Saxon settlements, gathering their forces. For what purpose? Artorius asks, though his tone suggests he already knows the answer. War, Kai says bluntly. Not just raids anymore. They mean to take territory, establish permanent settlements, drive us out or subjugate us. The room falls silent as the implications sink in. This is no longer about defending against occasional raiders, but facing an organized invasion. Artorius studies the map before him, his finger tracing the eastern coastline. Then we must strike first, before they can fully organize. He looks up, his gaze sweeping the room. Send word to all our allied settlements. We march east in 5 days. The officers nod, accepting the command without question. One by one they leave to begin preparations, until only Artorius, Bedwyr, and you remain. You've done well, Artorius tells you both. Rest tonight. Tomorrow I have a new task for you. Outside, the sun is setting, casting long shadows across the fort. Bedwyr heads for the cavalry barracks, but you find yourself drawn to the small chapel near the southern wall. It was once a temple to Roman gods, later converted to Christian use in the final years of Roman occupation. Now it serves both the followers of Christ and those who still honour the old gods of Britain. Inside, the air is heavy with the scent of beeswax candles and herbs strewn across the stone floor. At the far end stands a simple wooden cross, while in alcoves along the walls, small offerings, flowers, bits of food, crude figurines have been left for older deities. In one corner, a robed man sits reading from a parchment scroll by candlelight. He looks up as you enter, offering a gentle smile. "Welcome, young warrior," he says. "Do you seek guidance or merely a moment's peace?" Both, perhaps, you admit, taking a seat on one of the stone benches that line the walls. The cool stone seeps through your clothing, soothing after the heat of the day. The man sets aside his scroll and studies you with kind eyes. "I am Myrddin," he says. "Some call me a priest, others a druid. I find the distinctions matter less than the seeking." You've heard of this man, advisor to Artorius on matters beyond warfare, keeper of old knowledge, healer of both body and spirit. Some whisper he has the gift of prophecy, though he himself disclaims such powers. "I joined Artorius's cavalry months ago," you tell him. "I fought in battles, scouted enemy positions, delivered messages between allied settlements, yet sometimes I feel as lost as the day I left home." Myrddin nods, unsurprised by your confession. "We live in a time of great transition," he says. "The old ways are passing, new ones struggling to be born. It is natural to feel adrift. Artorius speaks of building something that will last," you say. "A Britain that stands on its own, neither Roman nor Saxon, but something new." Yes, Myrddin agrees. That is his vision, a difficult path, fraught with danger, yet the only one that offers hope. He leans forward, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. But visions require more than warriors to become reality. They need builders, thinkers, healers, those who remember the best of what was and can imagine what might be. You consider his words, watching the candle flames dance in a draught from the open doorway. I'm just a farmer's child who learned to ride and scout, you say finally. What part could I play in such a vision? Myrddin smiles, the lines around his eyes deepening. Eyes that see clearly, ears that hear truly, a heart that understands the land and its people. These are rare gifts, young one, as valuable as any sword arm. Before you can respond, a shadow falls across the doorway. You look up to see Bedwyr standing there, his expression unreadable in the dimming light. Artorius wants us, he says simply, now. You rise, nodding respectfully to Myrddin before following Bedwyr outside. The fort is quieter now, the day's activities winding down as night settles in. Cooking fires glow in the gathering darkness, and somewhere a woman sings a lullaby in the old British tongue, her voice rising and falling like gentle waves. What's happened? You ask Bedwyr as you hurry toward the headquarters building. A messenger arrived just after we parted, he answers, his voice tight. Saxon ships have been spotted off the coast near your home settlement. Your heart seems to stop, then pounds painfully against your ribs. My family, I know, Bedwyr cuts you off. Artorius knows too. That's why he's called for us. Inside the headquarters, Artorius stands alone at the map table, a single oil lamp casting his face in harsh light and shadow. He looks up as you enter, his expression grave. I've received word that a Saxon fleet has been sighted near your home, he says without preamble. At least 12 ships, possibly more. 12 ships, 5 times the force you faced in your first battle. Hundreds of warriors armed and ready for conquest. My family, you begin, your voice cracking. Artorius raises a hand. I'm sending a force immediately. 50 mounted warriors, the fastest we have. Bedwyr will lead them. He fixes you with a steady gaze. You will guide them. No one knows the land there better than you. Relief and fear war within you. Relief that help is being sent. Fear that it won't be enough or will arrive too late. The main army will follow as quickly as we can organise, Artorius continues, but these 50 must ride ahead, warn the settlements in the path of the Saxons, help evacuate those who cannot fight. When do we leave, you ask, already calculating what you'll need for the journey? Now, Artorius says simply. Tonight. The horses are being prepared as we speak. You nod, turning to go, but Artorius calls you back. Take this, he says, holding out a small object. You step closer, extending your hand. Into your palm, he places a bronze dragon, no larger than your thumb, intricately detailed with scales and wings. My standard, Artorius explains. Show it to the local leaders. They'll know you come with my authority. The bronze is warm from his hand, the weight of it in your palm oddly comforting. You close your fingers around it, feeling the edges press into your skin. We won't fail you, you promise. A ghost of a smile touches Artorius's lips. I know. Outside, the cavalry yard is a scene of controlled chaos. Horses are being saddled, weapons checked, provisions hastily packed. Bedwyr strides through it all, issuing crisp orders, selecting the men who will ride with you. Only the best, the most experienced, those with the fastest horses and steadiest hands. Your own mount, the dun mare Arwen, is already being prepared, a groom tightening the girth strap on her saddle. She nickers softly when she sees you, nudging your chest with her velvet nose. You stroke her neck, drawing comfort from her solid presence. Within an hour, The force is ready. 50 warriors mounted on the best horses in Artorius's cavalry, each carrying a short bow, a sword, and 3 days' provisions. They wear minimal armor for speed, leather reinforced with bronze at critical points, light helmets that won't exhaust them during the hard ride ahead. Bedwyr gives the order, and as one, the company moves out through the fort's western gate. Beyond the walls, you fall in beside him, taking the lead position. The weight of responsibility settles on your shoulders. These men are following you, trusting your knowledge of the paths and trails that will lead them to your homeland. The moon is high and full, bathing the landscape in silver light, perfect for night riding, but also perfect for Saxon ships navigating coastal waters. You push the thought away, focusing on the immediate task. The horses settle into a steady trot, eating up the miles with ground-covering strides. As you ride, memories of home flood back. The settlement where you grew up, the roundhouse where your family lived, the fields you helped plough and plant each spring. Faces rise in your mind, your father with his weather-lined face and calloused hands, your mother's quiet strength, your sister's quick smile and quicker temper. Are they safe? Have they had warning of the approaching danger? The night deepens around you, stars wheeling overhead as the hours pass. The riders are silent save for the creak of leather and the rhythmic thud of hooves on earth. Each man lost in his own thoughts, preparing in his own way for what lies ahead. Bedwyr pulls alongside you as you navigate a particularly narrow section of trail. "We'll reach the River Dubnus by dawn," he says, his voice low. "Rest the horses briefly, then push on. With luck, we'll reach your settlement by nightfall tomorrow." You nod, knowing that "with luck" carries a heavy burden of meaning. So much could go wrong. Horses going lame, unexpected obstacles, Saxon forces already on the move inland. But dwelling on these possibilities will only slow you down. Better to focus on the path ahead, the next hill to climb, the next stream to ford. As the eastern sky begins to lighten, turning from black to deep blue, then to pale grey, you allow yourself a moment of hope. Perhaps the warning has reached your settlement in time. Perhaps your family is already preparing to flee to safer ground. Perhaps Artorius's name and the dragon standard you carry will rally enough defenders to hold off the Saxon advance until the main army arrives. Perhaps. But as the first golden rays of sunlight spill over the horizon, illuminating the path that will lead you home, you know that hope alone is not enough. It will take courage, skill, and sacrifice to save what you love from the gathering storm. The horses push on, tireless in their commitment, much like the men who ride them, and as the new day fully dawns, you find yourself whispering a prayer to the Christian God, to the old deities of Britain, to whatever powers might be listening, that you will not be too late. The midday sun beats mercilessly on your back as you and Bedwyr's company ford the River Dubnus. The water swirls around your horse's legs, cool against your skin where it splashes above your boots. You've been riding since dawn, stopping only to water the horses and eat a quick meal of dried meat and hard bread. Your muscles ache from the constant motion, and despite the river's refreshing touch, sweat trickles down your spine beneath your leather jerkin. "How much farther?" Bedwyr asks, guiding his mount up the muddy bank beside you. "If we keep this pace, we'll reach the settlement by dusk," you reply, orienting yourself by the position of the sun and the familiar outline of hills on the horizon. This is your homeland. Every stream, every stand of trees, every rise and fall of the land as familiar to you as your own hands. Strange how different it looks now, viewed through eyes that have seen so much more of the world. When you left, these rolling hills seemed to encompass the entire world. Now they're just one small corner of a Britain struggling to find its identity in the vacuum left by Rome's departure. As your horse scrambles up the muddy riverbank, you catch sight of smoke in the distance. Not the ominous black billows of a burning village, but the thin grey wisps of cooking fires. A good sign. If your settlement were under attack, there would be no calm domestic smoke. The company moves on, the horses settling back into their ground-covering trot. The men are tired after nearly a full day and night of hard riding, but determination keeps them upright in their saddles. Many have families of their own in settlements just as vulnerable as yours. This mission is personal for all of you. As you crest a hill overlooking a wide valley, you spot a lone figure on horseback galloping toward you from the direction of your settlement. Bedwyr raises his hand and the column comes to a halt, 50 warriors instantly alert, hands moving to sword hilts and bowstrings. The rider approaches quickly, and as they draw closer, your heart leaps with recognition. It's Gawain, your childhood friend, now a messenger for the settlement council. He reins in his sweat-lathered pony sharply when he sees your company, his eyes widening at the sight of so many armed men. "Is that you?" he calls out, squinting against the sun at your face. Recognition dawns in his expression. "By all the gods, it is you." "Gawain," you acknowledge, nudging Owen forward. "What news from the settlement?" "Saxon ships," he confirms, his face grim. 12 that we've counted, anchored in the bay since yesterday. They've sent scouts to land, but no main force yet. The council sent me to warn the inland settlements and seek help. His eyes move over the mounted warriors behind you. "Seems you've saved me part of the journey." "We ride with Artorius," you explain, noting how Gawain's expression shifts at the name, a mixture of hope and skepticism. "Bedwyr commands this company." You gesture to the scarred warrior beside you. Gawain straightens in his saddle. "The settlement prepares as best it can. The council has ordered the old hill fort cleared and stocked with provisions. Women, children, and the elderly will shelter there when the Saxons attack." The hill fort, of course, built in the time before the Romans came, abandoned during their occupation. The ancient earthworks still crown the highest hill above your settlement. Its ditches and ramparts once kept out tribal enemies. Now they might serve against a new threat. "How many fighting men in the settlement?" Bedwyr asks. "All business." "Perhaps 60 who can hold a spear," Gawain replies. "Another 20 too old or young for proper fighting but willing to try. We have few real weapons. Hunting bows, farming tools, some spears, only 3 swords in the entire settlement." Bedwyr nods, his expression revealing nothing. "Take us there. We'll need to assess the defences before the Saxons land in force." As you ride, Gawain brings you up to date on your family. Your father lives, though a winter fever left him weakened. Your mother tends the settlement's herb garden, her knowledge of healing plants more valued than ever in these uncertain times. Your sister did indeed marry the blacksmith's son, and they have a child on the way. "They speak of you often," Gawain tells you. "Travellers brought news of the dragon cavalry and their victories against the Saxon raiders. Your father pretends not to care, but I've seen him listening intently when such tales are told around the evening fires." A complicated tangle of emotions tightens your chest. Relief that your family survives, guilt at having left them, pride that news of your deeds has reached them. The familiar landscape rushing past only intensifies these feelings. Each landmark triggers memories. The twisted oak where you played as children, the small stream where your father taught you to fish, the berry patch where you and your sister would compete to fill your baskets on summer days. As the sun begins its descent toward the western hills, your settlement comes into view. From a distance, it looks much as you remember, a cluster of roundhouses surrounded by fields, smoke rising from cooking fires, the wooden palisade encircling the perimeter. But as you draw closer, you notice changes. The palisade has been reinforced, sharpened stakes angled outward at its base. Platforms have been built along the inside, where defenders might stand to shoot arrows or hurl spears. At the main gate, 2 rough-hewn watchtowers now stand, giving sentries a better view of approaching threats. Your arrival causes an immediate stir. Children stop their play to stare, women emerge from roundhouses, men leave their work in the fields. As your company passes through the gate, a crowd gathers, their expressions a mixture of hope, fear, and wonder at the sight of 50 mounted warriors in matching blue cloaks, each bearing the dragon emblem of Artorias. At the centre of the settlement, near the ancient meeting stone, the council waits. Your father stands among them, leaning slightly on a walking stick, his face more lined than you remember, but his eyes as sharp as ever. Beside him, your mother's hand flies to her mouth when she sees you, tears springing to her eyes. Protocol demands you report to the council first, but your heart pulls you toward your family. Bedwyr, seeing your dilemma, gives a slight nod. Go, he says quietly. I'll handle the formalities. You dismount, handing Awin's reins to one of the other riders, and walk toward your parents. For a moment, all 3 of you simply stare, measuring the changes that months of separation have wrought. Then your mother steps forward, arms opening, and you're enveloped in her embraces. The familiar scent of herbs and wood smoke filling your nostrils. You've come back to us, she whispers, her voice thick with emotion. Not alone, you reply, pulling back slightly to include your father in your gaze. He studies you, taking in your leather armour, the sword at your hip, the newfound confidence in your stance. So, he says finally, the farmer's child has become a warrior. There's something in his tone you can't quite decipher. Pride, resignation. Before you can respond, your sister pushes through the crowd, her belly swollen with child, her husband, the blacksmith's son, close behind her. I knew you'd return, she says fiercely, embracing you. I told them all you'd come back when we needed you most. The reunion is bittersweet, joy at seeing your family again tempered by the shadow of the Saxon threat looming over all. After brief exchanges and promises of longer conversations later, you rejoin Bedwyr, who stands with the council elders near the meeting stone. Your settlement is well organised, Bedwyr is saying as you approach. The hill fort is a good fallback position, but the palisade here won't hold against a determined Saxon attack. The council leader, a grey-bearded man named Drust, who was old even when you were a child, frowns. We've strengthened it as best we could with the materials and time available. Of course, Bedwyr acknowledges, but we must be realistic about what we face. These Saxons aren't simply raiders looking for easy plunder. They come in force, seeking land to settle. They won't be turned away by sharpened stakes. What do you propose, then? Asks another elder, a woman whose intricate tattoos mark her as a keeper of the old ways. We divide our forces, Bedwyr says. Half my men will remain here to help defend the settlement and buy time. The other half will escort those who cannot fight to the hill fort, then take positions there. If, when, the palisade falls, all fighters will retreat in good order to the hill fort. And then, Drust demands. And then we hold until Artorias arrives with the main army, Bedwyr answers calmly. 5 days at most. A murmur runs through the crowd that has gathered to listen. 5 days seems an eternity when facing a Saxon warband, yet the alternative, abandoning the settlement immediately, means giving up homes, fields, and stored food without a fight. We will consider your plan, Drust says finally. The council will deliberate tonight. Until then, your men are welcome to our hospitality, such as it is in these troubled times. As the crowd disperses, Bedwyr turns to you. Show me this hill fort, he says. I need to understand its strengths and weaknesses before night falls. You lead Bedwyr and 2 of his officers up the winding path to the ancient hill fort. The climb is steep, making you appreciate why your ancestors chose this spot. Any attacking force would be exhausted before reaching the ramparts and completely exposed to arrows and spears from above during their ascent. The fort itself is a roughly oval enclosure atop the hill, surrounded by concentric rings of ditches and earth banks. Time has softened these defences, but they remain formidable. Inside the enclosure, people from the settlement are already at work, clearing undergrowth, repairing a wooden gatehouse that spans the single entrance, constructing rough shelters against the inner walls. Good sight lines, Bedwyr comments, walking the perimeter. Enough space for the entire settlement and their animals. Water source? He gestures to a depression in the centre of the enclosure. A spring, you confirm. It never runs dry, even in the hottest summers. Defensible, he concludes. Not ideal, but defensible. If we can hold the Saxons at the settlement long enough to get everyone safely here, we have a chance. As you descend back to the settlement in the gathering dusk, the first stars appearing in the eastern sky, you find yourself torn between hope and dread. You've brought help, yes, but is it enough? 50 warriors, no matter how skilled, against hundreds of Saxon fighters hungry for land and glory. The evening meal is a strained affair. Your mother has prepared a special bread with the last of the good flour, and your sister serves stew made rich with herbs and root vegetables from the settlement's communal garden. Your father sits across from you, asking carefully neutral questions about your time with Artorius's cavalry. You answer honestly but selectively, sparing them the worst horrors you've witnessed. After the meal, as family members move about clearing dishes and banking the hearth fire for the night, your father gestures for you to follow him outside. The night air is cool against your face as you step through the low doorway of the roundhouse. Above, the stars shine brilliantly in a clear sky. Good weather for the Saxon ships anchored in the bay. Walk with me, your father says, setting off toward the edge of the settlement. You fall in beside him, matching your pace to his slower one. His limp is more pronounced than you remember, evidence of the winter fever Gawain mentioned. Your mother worries, he says after a while. She fears you've changed too much, seen too much. I have changed, you acknowledge, Haki. How could I not? He nods, accepting this. When you left, I was angry, thought you were chasing glory, abandoning your responsibilities here. You start to protest, but he raises a hand to stop you. Let me finish. I was wrong. What you've learned, the help you've brought, we need it now more than ever. He stops walking, turning to face you directly. I'm proud of you. Should have said it earlier, but I'm saying it now. The words hit you like a physical force. All your life, you've sought your father's approval without quite realizing it. To hear it now, on the eve of battle, feels both perfect and terribly unfair, as if the gods are granting a wish only when you might not live to savor it. Thank you, you manage, your voice thick with emotion. He clasps your shoulder briefly, then continues walking. You resume your place beside him, comfortable now in the silence between you. When you reach the palisade, your father stops again, looking out through a gap between the wooden stakes at the darkened landscape beyond. I was about your age when the last Romans left, he says. I remember watching them march away down the old road, their armour gleaming in the sun, their standards held high. You've heard this story before, but you listen anyway, understanding that he needs to tell it again. My father said they'd be back. Everyone believed it. Rome had always been there, you see, for as long as anyone could remember. We couldn't imagine a world without it. He shakes his head slowly, but they never came back. Instead, the Saxons came. Artorius is coming, you remind him, with an army larger than any the Saxons have faced. Your father's smile is tinged with sadness. I hope you're right. but I've learned not to put too much faith in saviors from afar. He turns back toward the center of the settlement. Come, the council has called a meeting to hear Bedwyer's plan. We should be there. The meeting takes place in the largest roundhouse, crowded now with council members, village elders, and Bedwyer's officers. Torchlight casts flickering shadows on the wattle and daub walls, turning familiar faces strange and ominous. The air is thick with the smell of bodies pressed close, overlaid with the sweeter scent of pine branches strewn across the packed earth floor. Drust calls the meeting to order, his deep voice cutting through the murmured conversations. We face a grave threat, he begins. Saxon ships in our bay, their warriors preparing to land. We must decide tonight how to meet this threat. Bedwyr steps forward, his scarred face solemn in the torchlight. My men and I bring experience fighting these Saxons, but we also bring hope. Artorius himself marches with the main army, perhaps 3 days behind us. If we can hold until then, we have a real chance of victory. He outlines his plan again, in more detail this time. The settlement will be defended initially, buying time for the most vulnerable, children, elderly, pregnant women, to reach the hill fort with essential supplies. When the defence becomes untenable, the remaining fighters will retreat in ordered groups to the fort, where they'll make their final stand if necessary. Questions follow, practical concerns about water, food, signals between the two groups. What to do if the Saxons split their forces? Bedwyr answers each carefully, neither minimizing the dangers nor dwelling on them unnecessarily. Throughout, you note how he includes the local fighters in his planning, respecting their knowledge of the terrain while adding his own tactical expertise. By the time the meeting concludes, a fragile consensus has formed. The plan isn't perfect. No plan ever is in the face of such uncertainty, but it offers structure and purpose, transforming fear into action as people file out into the night, preparing for what may be their last peaceful sleep for some time. Bedwyr pulls you aside. Get some rest, he advises. Tomorrow will test us all. He hesitates, then adds, your knowledge of this place, these people, it's our greatest advantage. I'll need you clear-headed and ready. You nod, recognizing both the compliment and the responsibility it carries. I won't let you down. I know. He claps your shoulder once, then moves off toward the area where his men are settling for the night, checking weapons and armor one last time before sleeping. Back in your family's roundhouse, you find your mother still awake, sitting by the banked hearth, her fingers automatically spinning wool on a drop spindle even as her eyes stare into the glowing embers. She looks up as you enter, a smile warming her worried face. You should sleep, you tell her gently. Soon, she promises. She pats the space beside her on the wooden bench. Sit with me a while first. You comply, your body grateful for the rest after the long day of riding. The roundhouse is quiet, your father and sister already asleep in their respective corners, their breathing deep and even. Do you remember the stories I used to tell you? Your mother asks, her voice soft in the darkness. About the old heroes of Britain. You nod, smiling at the memory. Tales of Bran the Blessed, whose severed head continued to speak wisdom to his companions, of Branwen and her starling messenger, of Lud and his silver hand. Those stories kept our people's spirit alive during the Roman years, she continues. When we couldn't openly worship our gods or follow our customs, we passed down the tales, mother to child, generation after generation. Her fingers never stopped their spinning, the spindle turning rhythmically in the firelight. Now we face a new kind of conquest. If the Saxons win, they won't just take our land, they'll take our stories, our gods, our very identity. That won't happen, you say with more confidence than you feel. Artorius won't let it happen. Your mother's smile is knowing. This Artorius, you believe in him. It's not a question, but you answer anyway. I do. He's not just a warrior. He sees beyond the fighting to what might come after. A Briton neither Roman nor Saxon, but something new that honours the best of what came before. She nods slowly, her spindle pausing. Then he's what we've been waiting for. Not Rome returning, but something better. A leader who understands that Britain is more than just a distant province to be exploited or abandoned at will. You've never heard your mother speak this way about politics or leadership. It strikes you that there's much you don't know about her, perspectives and wisdom hidden beneath her role as wife and mother in a small settlement. Get some sleep, she says, echoing your earlier advice to her. Tomorrow will come soon enough. You retire to your corner of the roundhouse, lying on a straw mattress that feels luxurious after months of sleeping on the ground during campaigns. Despite your exhaustion, sleep comes fitfully. Your mind races with plans, contingencies, worries. What if the Saxons attack before dawn? What if they've already landed their main force without being detected? What if Artorius' army is delayed? When you finally drift off, your dreams are a chaotic blend of past and present. Saxon warriors with the faces of childhood friends, Artorius riding his white horse through the streets of Rome, your sister giving birth in the midst of battle, your father standing alone on the palisade, as enemy ships fill the horizon. You wake before dawn to the sound of a horn, 3 short blasts, the signal Bedwyr arranged with the sentries to indicate immediate danger. Instantly alert, you reach for your sword and belt, securing them as you rise. Around you, your family is also waking, confusion giving way to fear as the horn sounds again. Outside, the settlement is already in motion. People rush to follow the evacuation plan established the night before, gathering essential supplies, helping the elderly, organising children into groups. Bedwyr's warriors are a steady presence amid the chaos, their calm efficiency providing a framework for the civilians' activities. You spot Bedwyr near the main gate, conferring with the sentries who sounded the alarm. His expression is grim as you approach. Saxon longboats heading for the shore, he reports. At least 20 packed with warriors. They'll be on land within the hour. 20 boats, each carrying perhaps 30 fighters. 600 Saxon warriors against your settlement's 60 fighting men and Bedwyr's 50 cavalry. The odds are even worse than you feared. The evacuation, you ask? Already underway, first group heading to the hill fort now. He gestures to where a line of people, mostly women, children, and the elderly, are filing out the settlement's rear gate, escorted by 15 of Bedwyr's men. Second group assembles in half an hour, and the defence? Bedwyr's face hardens. We hold as long as we can, make them pay in blood for every step. He looks you over, noting your readiness. I need you with the rear guard. You know every path between here and the hill fort. When it's time to retreat, you'll guide the last defenders to safety. You nod, accepting the assignment despite the part of you that yearns to be in the front line, facing the Saxon threat directly. Bedwyr is right. Your knowledge of the terrain is too valuable to risk in the initial clash. Find your family, Bedwyr advises. Make sure they're in the second evacuation group, then report to the south wall. That's where we'll likely make our final stand before the retreat. Your mother is already prepared when you return to the roundhouse, a small bundle of essentials tied securely on her back. Your sister and her husband are with her, their faces pale but determined. Only your father is missing. Where is he? You ask, dread settling in your stomach. Your mother's expression confirms your fears. He went to the palisade, says he'll stand with the defenders. He's not strong enough, you protest. The fever... Tell him that, your sister interrupts. He won't listen to us. You find your father at the northern wall, the section facing the bay where the Saxon boats will land. He holds a spear, an old one with a Roman iron tip, probably hidden away since his youth. When he sees you approaching, he straightens as if expecting an argument. "I know what you're going to say," he begins. "You should be with Mother and the others," you say anyway. He shakes his head. "I've run once in my life. When the Saxons first came raiding years ago, I was younger then, stronger. I took your mother and your sister, just a baby, and fled to the hills while our first home burned." His grip tightens on the spear shaft. "I won't run again." You understand then? This isn't just stubbornness or misplaced pride. It's a chance to reclaim something lost, to face a fear that has haunted him for years. Who are you to deny him that? "Then we stand together," you say, making a quick decision. "I've been assigned to the south wall, but I'll speak with Bedwyr. He'll understand." Your father's eyes widen slightly, surprise giving way to a deeper emotion. "You would do that? You're my father," you say simply. "Where else would I be?" Bedwyr is not pleased with your request, but after a brief argument, he relents. "The south wall is still your responsibility," he insists, "but I'll station you at the northwest corner. You can keep an eye on both sections and on your father." From your new position, perched on the rough wooden platform that runs along the inside of the palisade, you have a clear view of the bay. The Saxon longboats have almost reached the shore, their dragon-headed prows cutting through the morning mist that hangs over the water. Warriors stand ready at the rails, their round shields and spears visible even at this distance. Beside you, your father leans on his spear, his face set in grim determination. Below, Bedwyr's men and the settlement's fighters take their positions along the wall, a thin line of defence against the coming storm. The sun breaks through the mist, glinting off metal. Saxon helmets, spear points, sword blades. Their war cries carry across the water, a sound that sends a primal shiver down your spine despite all you've seen and done with Artorius's cavalry. The first boats reach the shore, warriors leaping into the shallow water, splashing toward the beach. More follow, dozens, then hundreds of Saxon fighters forming rough ranks as their leaders shout orders. "Here they come," your father says quietly. "May the old gods and the Christian ones stand with us today." You nod, hand moving to the hilt of your sword. The real battle for Britain, for its land, its stories, its very soul, is about to begin. The first Saxon arrow whistles overhead, embedding itself in a roundhouse roof behind you. More follow, a deadly rain that forces defenders to duck behind the palisade. Beside you, your father crouches low, his breathing laboured from even this small exertion. You worry about his strength to endure what's coming, but there's no time to dwell on it. "Archers, ready!" Bedwyr's voice rings out clear and confident from his position at the centre of the north wall. The settlement's hunters and Bedwyr's bowmen knock arrows, waiting for the command. You peer through a gap in the palisade, watching the Saxon formation. They've assembled into a rough wedge, their front ranks holding overlapping shields to form a protective wall. Behind them, more warriors wait with spears and axes raised. Their leader, a massive man with a horned helmet and mail shirt, shouts commands in their guttural tongue. "Loose," Bedwyr orders. Arrows arch over the palisade, many finding gaps in the Saxon shield wall. Men fall, but others quickly step forward to fill the gaps. The formation continues advancing toward the settlement's main gate, their own archers providing covering fire. "They'll try to break through the gate," you tell your father, recognizing the standard Saxon tactic. "The rest is just distraction." He nods grimly. "Then that's where we need to be." Without waiting for your response, he begins moving along the platform toward the gate, using his spear as a walking staff. You follow, keeping low to avoid the increasingly accurate Saxon arrows. Several defenders have already fallen, their bodies being dragged away by settlement women who dart forward to retrieve them, risking their own lives in the process. By the time you reach the gate area, the Saxon vanguard is less than 50 paces away. Their front ranks carry a massive log, a battering ram improvised from a fallen tree. The sight chills your blood. The gate, while sturdy enough for everyday use, won't withstand many blows from such a weapon. Bedwyr has anticipated this. His best warriors, dismounted but still formidable in their leather and bronze armour, form a second line of defence behind the gate. Among them stands Kai, Artorius's red-bearded lieutenant who arrived just before dawn with 10 additional riders. "Protect the hinges!" Kai orders, pointing to the vulnerable joints where the gate connects to the palisade wall. "When the wood begins to splinter, fall back to position 2. Your father takes a place among the settlement's defenders atop the wall near the gate. You join him, drawing your sword, its weight now familiar and reassuring in your hand. Below, the remaining women, children, and elderly who weren't in the first evacuation group are being hurried toward the rear gate, escorted by a handful of Bedwyr's men. Among them, you spot your mother and sister, looking back anxiously before disappearing around a cluster of roundhouses. The first impact of the battering ram against the gate sends a shudder through the entire palisade. Wood creaks and groans under the assault. A second blow follows quickly, and you hear the ominous crack of splitting timber. "Steady!" Bedwyr calls from his position near the gate. "Archers, target the men with the ram." Another volley of arrows rains down on the Saxons. Several of the warriors holding the battering ram fall, but others immediately take their places. The assault continues relentlessly, each impact more damaging than the last. On the fifth blow, something gives way with a sickening crack. The gate doesn't collapse entirely, but it sags inward, timbers splintered, one hinge partially torn from its mounting. "Fall back to position 2, Kai orders. The defenders on the ground retreat to a hastily constructed barricade of overturned carts and furniture that blocks the main path into the settlement. Those of you on the wall remain, raining down spears and arrows on the Saxons as they continue their assault on the failing gate. Your father hurls his Roman-tipped spear with surprising strength, catching a Saxon warrior in the shoulder. The man falls back, screaming, only to be trampled by his eager comrades pressing forward. The sixth blow shatters the gate. Broken timbers crash inward, and Saxon warriors pour through the opening like water through a broken dam. They're met by Kai and his men at the barricade, the clash of weapons and shields creating a deafening cacophony in the confined space. "Now we go," you tell your father, seeing Saxons already beginning to climb the palisade on either side of the broken gate. "To the south wall, as planned." He hesitates, eyes fixed on the battle below. "I can still fight." "And you will," you assure him, "at the hill fort. That's where we'll make our final stand." After a moment's hesitation, he nods, allowing you to guide him along the walkway toward the south wall. The palisade platform is becoming increasingly dangerous as Saxon arrows target any visible defenders. You both move in a half-crouch, using the rough wooden shield wall for cover. At the south wall, Bedwyr has already organised the staged retreat he planned the night before. Fighters are withdrawing in small groups, covering each other as they fall back toward the settlement's rear gate. From there, they'll take the path to the hill fort, forming a defensive line to protect the evacuees already on their way. "Go with the next group," you tell your father, helping him down the ladder from the palisade platform. I need to stay until the final retreat. He looks as if he might argue, but a Saxon war cry from nearby, too near, settles the matter. A small band of enemy warriors has broken through the eastern section of the palisade and is moving toward your position. Your father clasps your arm briefly. Don't wait too long, he Tsu. Min Chain Saints Domed. Joins a group of defenders preparing to withdraw. You turn to face the approaching Saxons, sword raised. There are 5 of them, advancing cautiously, aware they've become separated from their main force. Their bearded faces are spattered with blood, not their own, and their eyes hold the wild light of battle frenzy. For a moment you consider your options. You could fall back immediately, but that would leave the retreat vulnerable. You could stand and fight, but alone against 5, your chances are slim. Or the thought comes suddenly, a memory of something Bedwyr taught you during training. A warrior fights with his mind first, his weapon second, he'd said. Sometimes the clever solution isn't fighting at all. Acting on instinct, you grab a torch from its bracket on a nearby post. The Saxons hesitate, confused by this odd behaviour. Before they can react, you hurl the torch onto the thatched roof of the nearest roundhouse. Dry from the summer heat, the thatch catches immediately, sending up a plume of smoke and flame. The fire won't spread quickly enough to threaten the retreating defenders, but it creates a barrier between you and the Saxon band. More importantly, it creates confusion, something you can use to your advantage. You sprint toward the south gate, shouting a warning to the last group of defenders preparing to leave. Saxons from the east, fire barrier won't hold long. Bedwyr, overseeing the final retreat, takes in the situation at a glance. Move out now, he orders the remaining defenders. To you, he adds, good thinking with the fire, join the rear guard. The rear guard consists of Bedwyr himself, 5 of his most experienced warriors, and now you. Your job is simple but dangerous. Be the last to leave, ensuring all other defenders have safely withdrawn while preventing any Saxon pursuit for as long as possible. As the last regular defenders exit through the south gate, Bedwyr's men take up positions to cover the retreat. 2 are skilled archers who immediately begin targeting any Saxons visible through the growing smoke. The others form a small shield wall across the path to the gate. The sounds of fighting from the settlement centre have grown more distant, a bad sign. It means the Saxons have broken through the barricade and are spreading throughout the settlement, looting and burning as they go. Soon they'll reach your position in force. 1 minute more, Bedwyr decides, judging the distance between the retreating defenders and the relative safety of the tree line beyond the settlement's fields. Then we go. That minute stretches like an eternity. The smoke from the burning roundhouse has thickened, carried by the wind across the southern section of the settlement. Through swirling grey clouds, you catch glimpses of Saxon warriors moving from house to house. They haven't spotted your small group yet, but it's only a matter of time. Now, Bedwyr says quietly, move, don't run, walk quickly, stay together. Your group withdraws through the gate, the archers moving first while the shield-bearers maintain their defensive line. Once outside the palisade, you begin the careful retreat across open ground toward the forest path that leads to the hill fort. You're halfway to the tree line when a shout goes up from the settlement wall. A group of Saxons has spotted you and is giving chase, at least 20 warriors pouring through the south gate like angry hornets from a disturbed nest. Change of plan, Bedwyr announces calmly. You, he points to you, lead the archers to the forest and catch up with the main group. The rest of us will delay our Saxon friends. I should stay with you, you protest. Your father needs you, Bedwyr counters. And I need someone who knows every path to guide our people if we don't make it. Now go. There's no time to argue. With a last glance at Bedwyr, his scarred face set in grim determination, sword already drawn, you lead the two archers toward the forest at a run. Behind you, Bedwyr and his 3 warriors form a line, bracing to meet the Saxon charge. The archers pause at the edge of the tree line, turning to loose a final volley of arrows at the pursuing Saxons before following you into the forest. The dense undergrowth slows your progress, branches whipping at your face, roots threatening to trip you with every step. But this is your homeland. You know every game trail, every shortcut through these woods. You lead your small group along a winding path that parallels the main trail to the hill fort but remains hidden from it. If any Saxons break through Bedwyr's rear guard and follow the obvious route, they'll miss you entirely. After a quarter hour of hard travel, the trees thin out and you catch sight of the hill fort rising above you. The ancient earthworks, concentric rings of ditches and ramparts, form a natural defensive position atop the highest hill in the area. Already you can see movement along the uppermost rampart, defenders taking position, readying weapons. The narrow path up to the fort's entrance is steep and winding, designed to force attackers to climb slowly in full view of defenders. As you begin the ascent, you scan the landscape behind you. Smoke rises from the settlement in thick black columns. The Saxons are burning what they can't carry away. Of Bedwyr and his rear guard, there is no sign. At the fort's entrance, a gap in the earthworks reinforced with a wooden gateway, guards challenge you, then wave you through when they recognize your dragon emblem. Inside, organized chaos reigns. The evacuees from the settlement are being sorted into groups. Those who can fight, those who can tend the wounded, those who need shelter within the rudimentary wooden structures built against the inner wall. You spot your father helping to organize the settlement's remaining fighters, about 40 men of varying ages, armed with a motley collection of weapons. Relief washes over you at the sight of him, still standing, still fighting in his own way. You made it, he says as you approach, the simple words carrying the weight of a father's fear for his child. Bedwyr and 3 others stayed behind to delay the Saxon pursuit, you report, keeping your voice steady despite the hollow feeling in your chest. I saw no sign of them on the way here. Your father nods, understanding what remains unsaid. Your mother and sister are safe, helping set up the healers area. Kai has taken command of our defences. As if summoned by his name, Artorius's red-bearded lieutenant appears, his armour dusty but intact. Good, you've arrived, he says briskly. I need scouts on the outer rampart. You know what to look for. Saxon movements, their numbers, whether they're preparing for an immediate assault or settling in for a siege. You nod, grateful for the assignment. Action is better than waiting, wondering about Bedwyr's fate or how long the hill fort can hold against a determined Saxon force. The outer rampart provides a clear view of the surrounding countryside. From this vantage point, you can see the settlement below, many of its buildings now engulfed in flames. Beyond, the bay glitters in the afternoon sun, the Saxon longships pulled up on the shore, their dragon-headed prows facing the land as if eager to join the conquest. Movement catches your eye, a group of mounted figures emerging from the forest to the north. For a moment your heart leaps with hope, reinforcements from Artorius, but as they draw closer you recognize the distinctive round shields and horned helmets of Saxon riders. They circle the base of the hill, assessing the fort's defences, occasionally stopping to confer. Scouts, just like you, gathering information for their war leader. You count 12 riders in all, a small force, but their presence confirms your worst fears. The Saxons aren't content with simply raiding the settlement. They intend to take the hill fort as well, eliminating any British resistance in the area before establishing their permanent settlement. As you continue your surveillance, a flicker of movement from the forest edge draws your attention. At first, you think it might be deer or wild boar disturbed by the fighting. Then you make out the unmistakable silhouette of a man moving with deliberate stealth between the trees. You narrow your eyes, focusing on the figure. He wears a blue cloak, now torn and muddy, and moves with a slight limp. Bedwyr. The realization sends a surge of relief through you. He's alive, making his way toward the hill fort by a circuitous route to avoid the Saxon patrols. Without hesitation, you scramble down from your observation post and find Kai, reporting what you've seen. "How far?" he asks immediately. "Half a mile, approaching from the west," you reply, moving carefully, but the Saxon riders are patrolling that area. He'll need cover to reach the fort safely. Kai nods, quickly formulating a plan. Take 5 archers to the western rampart. When Bedwyr makes his move for the hill, provide covering fire. I'll have a sortie ready to rush out and bring him in if necessary. The western rampart offers a clear view of Bedwyr's approach route. You position the archers at intervals, instructing them to target the Saxon riders if they threaten Bedwyr's path to safety. Then you settle in to wait, watching the tree line for any sign of movement. The sun has begun its descent toward the western horizon, casting long shadows across the landscape. When you finally spot Bedwyr again, he's closer now, crouched in a shallow gully that runs part way up the hillside. He remains still, presumably waiting for the Saxon patrol to pass, before making his final dash to the fort. You signal the archers to be ready. Below, at the fort's entrance, Kai and a group of warriors prepare to provide support if needed. The Saxon patrol appears, 6 riders moving slowly along the base of the hill, their attention focused on the fort above rather than the gully beside them. They pass Bedwyr's position without noticing him, continuing around to the eastern side of the hill. This is his chance. Bedwyr seems to realise it too, emerging from the gully and beginning a crouching run up the steep slope toward the fort. He's made it perhaps halfway when a shout goes up. One of the Saxon riders has turned back and spotted him. "Archers," you command, "target the rider." Arrows whistle through the air, most falling short of the rapidly moving horseman, but one strikes home. The Saxon tumbles from his saddle with a cry that alerts his companions. The remaining 5 riders wheel around, spurring their mounts toward Bedwyr's exposed position. "Now, Kai!" you shout down to the gate party. Kai and his warriors burst from the fort's entrance, rushing down the path to intercept the Saxon riders before they can reach Bedwyr. The archers continue firing, forcing the Saxons to raise their shields, slowing their advance. Bedwyr, seeing the support coming, abandons stealth for speed, sprinting directly up the hillside despite his obvious exhaustion and injuries. 2 Saxon riders break through, bearing down on him with spears levelled. He dives to one side, avoiding the first rider's thrust, but the second catches him a glancing blow that sends him rolling down the slope. Without thinking, you vault over the rampart, sliding and scrambling down the steep outer face of the earthwork. The drop is further than you anticipated, and you land hard, pain shooting through your ankle. Ignoring it, you draw your sword and rush toward Bedwyr, who has regained his feet but stands swaying, clearly dazed from the fall. The Saxon riders circle back, preparing for another charge. One breaks off to deal with Kai's approaching party, but the other focuses on Bedwyr, seeing wounded prey. The rider lowers his spear, urging his horse forward. You throw yourself between them, sword raised in a desperate parry. The impact of spear on sword sends shocks up your arm, nearly tearing the weapon from your grasp. The Saxon rider curses, drawing his own sword as he wheels his horse around for another pass. Bedwyr has recovered enough to stand steadier, his own sword now in hand. Together, he gasps, moving to stand back to back with you as a second rider joins the first, circling like wolves around wounded deer. The first Saxon charges again, his horse's hooves thundering on the hard ground. You brace yourself, sword held in both hands. At the last possible moment, Bedwyr shouts, "Now!" and you both dive in opposite directions. The rider, committed to his charge, cannot adjust in time. His horse gallops between you, exposing his flank. Bedwyr's sword flashes up, hamstringing the animal. Horse and rider crash to the ground in a tangle of thrashing limbs and curses. The second Saxon, seeing his companion fall, hesitates just long enough for Kai and his warriors to reach you. Outnumbered, the rider retreats, galloping back to join the rest of the patrol, who have also withdrawn to a safe distance. "Can you walk?" Kai asks Bedwyr, eyeing the bloodstain spreading on his blue cloak. "I'll manage," Bedwyr grunts, though his face is pale beneath the dirt and blood. "What of the others?" "Dead," Kai says simply. "You're the only one who made it." Something passes across Bedwyr's face. Grief, guilt, anger, before he masters it. Then their sacrifice will not be wasted. We hold until Artorius comes. The climb back to the fort is slow and painful. Bedwyr leans heavily on you, each step clearly agony for him. The spear that struck him tore through his leather armor just below the ribs on his left side. Not immediately fatal, but dangerous if infection sets in. Inside the fort, Bedwyr is immediately taken to the healers area, where your mother and other settlement women tend to the wounded. You follow, concerned for his condition, but Kai stops you with a hand on your shoulder. "He'll be cared for," the red-bearded warrior assures you. "I need you elsewhere. The Saxons are gathering for an assault before nightfall. Every sword arm is needed on the ramparts." Indeed, looking back toward the settlement, you can see a large force of Saxon warriors assembling at the base of the hill. Their leader, the massive man in the horned helmet, strides among them, gesturing toward the fort, clearly organizing an attack. "How many?" you ask, though you dread the answer. 400, perhaps more, Kai replies grimly. "They've left some to secure the settlement, but their war leader wants this finished before dark." You do a quick mental calculation. The fort has perhaps 100 defenders all told, including Bedwyr's remaining warriors, the settlement's fighting men, and those women who have chosen to take up arms. Many are wounded, exhausted, or poorly equipped. Against a Saxon force 4 times their size, led by experienced warriors, the outlook is bleak. Kai seems to read your thoughts. "We don't need to defeat them," he reminds you. "Only hold until Artorius arrives. One day, perhaps 2. You nod, pushing aside your doubts. One day, you can hold for one day. Your father finds you as you take your position on the southeastern rampart, where the first Saxon assault is likely to come. He carries a new spear, not the fine Roman-tipped one he lost in the settlement, but a cruder weapon with an iron head forged by the settlement's blacksmith. "Your mother asked me to give you this," he says, handing you a small leather pouch similar to the one she gave you when you first left home. Inside is a small carving of a dragon, carefully worked from a piece of antler. "For protection," he explains. "She made it while waiting for you to return." You tie the pouch securely to your belt, touched by the gesture. The dragon, symbol of Artorius's cavalry, now also a personal talisman from your mother. Protection, yes, but also a reminder of what you fight for. The sun touches the western horizon, its light turning golden across the hillside. Below, the Saxon war leader raises his massive axe, and a roar goes up from his assembled warriors. The attack is beginning. "Here they come," your father says quietly, readying his spear. All along the rampart, defenders prepare for the onslaught, archers knocking arrows, spearmen bracing their weapons, slingers checking their ammunition pouches. The first wave of Saxons charges up the steep slope toward the fort's outer ditch, their war cries echoing across the hillside. They carry ladders, fascines to fill the ditches, and shields raised against the expected arrow storm. "Archers!" Kai's voice rings out from his position at the centre of the rampart. "Loose!" Arrows rain down on the attacking Saxons, dropping many, but more press forward. They reach the first ditch, throwing in their fascines, bundles of sticks and brush, to create crossing points. Some fall to arrows or slingstones, but others make it across, advancing to the outer rampart. "Stand ready," Kai calls as the first Saxon ladders appear against the earthwork. The real test is about to begin. The sun sinks lower, blood red on the horizon. In the fading light, the battle for the hill fort, and perhaps for Britain itself, will be decided. The first Saxon warrior crests the outer rampart, his bearded face contorted in a battle cry. 3 more appear beside him, then a dozen, their ladders providing a steady stream of attackers. The hill fort's defenders meet them with spears, swords, and desperate courage, fighting to push them back down the steep earthen slope. Your sword feels impossibly heavy in your hand as you face your third opponent, a burly Saxon with a matted blonde beard and a dented helmet. Your muscles burn with fatigue, your lungs struggle for air in the dust-filled twilight. The previous 2 attackers lie dead or wounded at the bottom of the rampart, but more keep coming, an endless tide of warriors hungry for British land. The Saxon rushes you with an overhead swing of his long-handled axe. You sidestep, letting the weapon embed itself in the wooden reinforcement of the rampart. As he struggles to free it, you thrust your sword into the gap between his leather armour and helmet. He falls without a sound, rolling down the embankment to join his fallen comrades. There's no time to rest. Another takes his place and another after him. All along the outer rampart, similar struggles play out, defenders desperately holding their positions against the Saxon onslaught. To your right, your father fends off an attacker with his spear, his movements slower than yours, but made effective by decades of experience and the economy of effort that comes with age. Or fall back. Kai's voice cuts through the din of battle. Outer rampart compromised, fall back to the second line. The order comes not a moment too soon. Saxon warriors have established a foothold on the eastern section of the rampart, threatening to flank your position. A controlled withdrawal is better than being surrounded. You grab your father's arm. "Time to go," you shout over the battle noise, pulling him toward the inner rampart 20 paces behind you. He nods, jabbing his spear one last time at an approaching Saxon before turning to retreat. The withdrawal is orderly but costly. Some defenders provide covering fire with bows and slings while others fall back. Then they switch, leapfrogging to the inner defensive line. Not everyone makes it. A young man from your settlement, barely more than a boy, stumbles on the uneven ground between ramparts. Before anyone can reach him, a Saxon spear finds his back. His cry cuts off abruptly, becoming just one more in the symphony of death that surrounds you. At the inner rampart, the defence solidifies. This earthwork is higher, its outer face steeper, making it harder for the Saxons to scale. More importantly, the narrower circumference means fewer defenders can cover the entire perimeter. They'll try to flank us through the entrance path, Kai predicts, wiping blood from a cut above his eye. We need more fighters there. "I'll go," you volunteer, knowing your father lacks the speed to relocate quickly in the middle of battle. Kai nods. "Take 5 men. Hold that approach at all costs." The entrance to the hill fort follows a narrow, winding path that cuts through the concentric rings of ramparts. Originally designed to force attackers into a vulnerable position, it now represents the weakest point in your defences. If the Saxons can force their way up that path in numbers, the fort will fall. You select 5 warriors, 3 of Bedwyre's men and 2 hunters from your settlement, and hurry to the entrance. Already, Saxons are probing the outer gate, testing its strength with axes and makeshift battering rams. The wooden gate, hastily reinforced during the evacuation, creaks ominously under the assault. Archers, target the ram-bearers, you order, positioning your small force to best advantage. The hunters, skilled bowmen both, take up positions with clear sightlines to the gate. Bedwyre's warriors form a tight defensive line across the inner section of the path, where it narrows between steep earthen banks. The gate gives way with a splintering crash just as darkness fully descends on the hill fort. Torches flare along the ramparts, casting flickering light on the battle below. Through the broken gate, Saxon warriors pour onto the entrance path, their momentum carrying them forward until they meet the storm of arrows from your archers. The first wave falters, men falling to well-placed shots or stumbling over their fallen comrades. But the second wave leaps over the bodies, shields raised, charging up the winding path toward your position. The narrowness of the approach works in your favour. Only 3 Saxons can advance abreast, limiting their numerical advantage. "Hold the line!" you shout as the first Saxons reach your defensive position. "Don't give them room to spread out." The clash of steel on steel, shield on shield, fills the night air. Your small force holds firm, the discipline instilled by Bedwyre's training proving its worth. One of the settlement hunters falls, an axe cleaving through his shoulder, but the line doesn't break. You fight mechanically now, your body responding to threats almost without conscious thought. Parry, thrust, sidestep, strike. Time loses meaning in the rhythm of battle. Minutes stretch into what feels like hours, each moment distinct yet bleeding into the next. Your world narrows to the few feet of ground you must defend, the enemies directly before you, the comrades on either side who depend on your strength as you depend on theirs. A horn blast cuts through the fog of battle, 3 short notes followed by 2 long. Not a Saxon signal, but one you recognise from your time with Artorius's cavalry. A relief signal, but who? "The southern slope," someone shouts from the rampart above. "Riders! Dozens of them!" Hope surges in your chest, giving new strength to your tired limbs. Could it be? Has Artorius arrived already, a full day before expected? The Saxons hear the horn too, and confusion ripples through their ranks. The pressure on your defensive line eases slightly as warriors glance back down the path, trying to understand this new development. You seize the opportunity. "Push them back," you order, leading a sudden counterattack that catches the Saxon front rank off balance. They retreat a few crucial steps, creating space that your archers immediately exploit with a fresh volley of arrows. Another horn blast, closer now, and the distinct thunder of hoofbeats approaching from the south. The Saxons attacking the entrance path waver, caught between continuing their assault on the fort and responding to this new threat at their rear. Their hesitation proves fatal. Over the ridge to the south, silhouetted against the night sky, riders appear, not dozens but hundreds, moving in the disciplined formation that can only belong to Artorius's dragon cavalry. At their head, mounted on his white stallion, a figure raises a sword that catches the torchlight from the fort, seeming to glow with its own inner fire. Artorius! The name spreads through the hill fort like wildfire, passed from defender to defender, infusing exhausted fighters with renewed hope. The Saxon war leader, the massive man with the horned helmet, bellows orders, trying to reorganize his forces to meet this new threat. But it's too late. Artorius's cavalry hits the Saxon rear like a thunderbolt, lances lowered, the momentum of their charge shattering the hastily formed shield wall. From your position at the entrance path, you can't see the details of the battle on the southern slope, but its effects ripple through the Saxon forces immediately. The warriors pressing the attack on the fort's entrance suddenly find themselves isolated, cut off from their main body. Some break and run, seeking escape through the gathering darkness. Others, driven by pride or battle fury, redouble their assault, determined to take the fort before Artorius's forces can intervene. Stand firm, you call to your remaining fighters. One last push. The battle for the entrance path intensifies, becoming a desperate struggle of wills as much as weapons. The Saxons know their only hope lies in taking the fort quickly and using it as a defensive position against Artorius's cavalry. You and your small band represent the only obstacle to that plan. Minutes pass in a blur of violence. Another of your defenders falls, then another. You're pushed back step by step toward the inner gate, your arms leaden with exhaustion, blood, both yours and others, making your grip on your sword hilt treacherous. Just as it seems your line must break, reinforcements arrive from within the fort, Kai leading a group of fighters who form a second line behind yours, shoring up the defense at its most critical moment. Among them, you spot your father, his face grim but determined, his spear at the ready. "Hold them just a little longer," Kai urges. "Artorius is breaking their main force. They'll have nowhere to retreat soon." True to his words, the pressure suddenly lessens. The Saxons attacking the path begin to glance over their shoulders, hearing the sounds of their comrades' defeat on the slope below. Their war leader's voice can no longer be heard above the din. Captured, fled, or dead, you can't tell which. Without leadership, the Saxon assault falters, then collapses. Warriors break away individually or in small groups, seeking escape through the darkness. Some throw down their weapons, surrendering to the hill fort's defenders. Others fight to the bitter end, preferring death to defeat. Within an hour, it's over. The surviving Saxons have fled into the night or been captured. The hill fort's ramparts, so recently the scene of desperate battle, now host exhausted defenders tending wounds, counting losses and watching in wonder as Artorius's cavalry secures the slopes below. You find yourself sitting on a fallen log near the inner gate, suddenly unable to stand as the battle fury drains from your body, leaving only bone-deep weariness in its wake. Your sword lies across your knees, its blade notched and stained. You should clean it, you think distantly, but your arms refuse to obey. A hand falls on your shoulder. Your father stands beside you, his own exhaustion evident in the slump of his shoulders, but his eyes hold a pride that warms you despite your fatigue. "You held the path," he says simply. "Without that, we'd have lost the fort before Artorius arrived. You want to respond, to share this moment of victory with him, but words seem beyond your capacity. Instead, you reach up and clasp his hand where it rests on your shoulder, a gesture that conveys what speech cannot. A stir at the entrance path draws your attention. Riders are entering the fort, led by a figure on a white horse whose presence seems to fill the space, drawing all eyes. Artorius has arrived. He looks much as you remember him, tall and straight-backed in his saddle, his dark hair and beard now streaked with a little more grey, his armour bearing fresh dents and scrapes from the recent battle. But there's something different about him too, a gravity that wasn't there before, as if the months of campaign have added weight to his shoulders even as they've added steel to his purpose. Kai approaches, offering a warrior's greeting, arm clasped to arm, no words needed between men who have faced death together many times. Then Artorius turns to address the gathered defenders, his voice carrying clearly in the night air. "People of Britain," he begins, looking around at the faces illuminated by torchlight. Today you have shown the courage that lives in all true Britons. You faced an enemy greater in number, and you held your ground. You protected your homes, your families, your very way of life. He pauses, his grey eyes moving over the crowd, seeming to meet each gaze individually. This is not the first such battle, nor will it be the last. The Saxons will return in greater numbers, seeking to take what is ours. They believe us weak because Rome has abandoned us. They believe we cannot stand without foreign masters. A murmur runs through the crowd, a mixture of fear and defiance. They are wrong, Artorius continues, his voice strengthening. Rome didn't make Britain great. Britain made Rome great in these isles. Our ancestors built the hill forts that still protect us. Our hands worked the fields that feed us. Our hearts keep the stories and songs that give us courage in dark times. He dismounts, standing now among the people rather than above them. I do not fight to restore Roman rule. I fight to protect a Britain that belongs to all who live here and love this land. Whether their ancestors came from Rome, from Gaul, from the northern tribes, or have lived here since time immemorial. The silence that greets his words is profound, each person absorbing the vision he presents. Not a return to the past, not a surrender to invaders, but something new, something uniquely British. Tomorrow we will bury our dead with honour, Artorius says more quietly. We will rebuild what the Saxons have destroyed. And then we will take the fight to them, driving them back to their ships, showing them that Britain is not a land easily conquered. He turns to Kai. See to the wounded, post guards, let the others rest. To the gathered defenders, he adds, you have earned your peace this night. Tomorrow brings new challenges. As the crowd disperses, following Kai's more specific orders, Artorius's gaze falls on you. Recognition lights his eyes and he approaches, taking in your bloodied appearance and exhausted posture with a soldier's understanding. My scouts told me you held the entrance path against overwhelming odds, he says. Bedwyr chose well when he made you a scout. Bedwyr, you remember suddenly. Is he alive? Artorius confirms. Though his wounds are serious, I've sent my personal physician to tend him. Relief washes through you. Despite your relatively short time together, Bedwyr has become more than just a commander to you, a mentor, perhaps even a friend. Your settlement has suffered greatly, Artorius continues, his expression sombre, but the people will rebuild, stronger now, knowing they can defend themselves, and they will not stand alone. You're staying? You ask, surprised. You had assumed Artorius would continue his campaign against the Saxons elsewhere once this immediate threat was dealt with. For a time, he nods. This area has strategic importance. Good harbours, fertile land, access to inland routes. The Saxons will want it, which means we must deny it to them. He studies you thoughtfully. Your knowledge of the land will be valuable in the coming days. Rest tonight. Tomorrow, I'll need you to guide scouts to the Saxon landing sites. With that, he moves on, stopping to speak with other defenders, learning names, hearing stories, binding these disparate people to his cause, not through force or fear, but through genuine connection. You watch him go, understanding now why men follow him so willingly. He offers not just protection, but purpose, not just survival, but a vision of a future worth fighting for. Your father settles beside you on the log, his body creaking with age and exertion. So that's the famous Artorius, he muses. Not quite what the stories describe. Better, you reply. The stories make him sound like some kind of god, but he's a man, and that makes what he's doing all the more remarkable. Your father considers this, then nods slowly. Perhaps that's why the old kings failed. They tried to be like Rome, distant, demanding tribute, ruling through fear. This Artorius walks among his people, listens to them, bleeds with them. The observation strikes you as profound, especially coming from your father, who has always been skeptical of self-proclaimed leaders. Before you can respond, your mother appears, carrying a wooden bowl of something steaming. "Drink," she instructs, handing you the bowl. "Herbs for strength and healing." The liquid is bitter but warming, spreading through your tired limbs like gentle fire. Only when you've drained the bowl do you notice the dried blood on your mother's hands and the weariness in her eyes. She's been tending the wounded without rest since the battle began. "You should sleep," you tell her, echoing Artorius's words to the defenders. She smiles faintly. "Soon, there are still those who need care." Her hand brushes your cheek briefly. "I'm glad you're safe." Then she's gone, moving back toward the area where the wounded lie. Your sister finds you next, her pregnant belly now prominent beneath her simple dress. She carries bread and cheese, insisting you eat despite your protest that others might need it more. "You can't fight on an empty stomach," she says practically, "and there will be more fighting before this is over." As you eat, she tells you what happened during the evacuation, how the children were kept calm with stories and games despite their fear, how the older women organised food preparation in the hill fort, how your mother took charge of the healers area with quiet authority. "They listen to her," your sister says with evident pride. Even Artorius's physician deferred to her knowledge of local herbs when treating Bedwire's wounds. The food and your mother's herbal drink begin to work their magic, restoring some small measure of strength to your depleted body. Still, when your sister insists you find a place to sleep, you don't argue. The battle is won for now. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, as Artorius said, but they can wait a few hours. You find a quiet corner in one of the rough shelters built against the hill fort's inner wall. The ground is hard, but someone has spread clean straw for bedding. You lie down, your body immediately crying out in gratitude for the horizontal position. Around you, other defenders settle for the night, their quiet conversations and occasional groans of pain forming a strange lullaby. Sleep comes swiftly, dragging you down into darkness, untroubled by dreams. Your last conscious thought is of Artorius, standing among the defenders, offering a vision of a Britain worth fighting for. You wake to early morning light filtering through gaps in the shelter's roof. For a moment, disorientation grips you. Where are you? Why does every muscle in your body ache? Then memory returns in a rush. The Saxon attack, the desperate defence of the hill fort, Artorius's timely arrival. Outside, the hill fort is already active despite the early hour. Women prepare breakfast over cook fires, children fetch water from the central spring, and warriors check weapons and armour, preparing for whatever the day might bring. Among them move Artorius's cavalry, their blue cloaks and dragon emblems adding a touch of uniformity to the otherwise disparate gathering. You find your family near one of the cook fires, your mother stirring a pot of porridge while your father and sister sit nearby, talking quietly. They look up as you approach, relief evident in their faces. Even after seeing you safe last night, part of them feared you might not wake this morning. Artorius was looking for you, your father informs you as you accept a bowl of porridge. Said to find him when you've eaten. You nod, too hungry to respond verbally as you devour the simple meal. The porridge is plain, seasoned only with a pinch of salt, but to your battle-weary body it tastes better than the finest feast at Artorius's headquarters. After eating, you make your way to the center of the hill fort where Artorius has established a temporary command post. Maps are spread on a makeshift table, Roman military charts supplemented with local knowledge showing coastlines, settlements, roads, and terrain features. Artorius stands with several officers, including Kai, discussing strategy for the day ahead. He looks up as you approach, gesturing for you to join them. Good, you're here. We're planning reconnaissance of the Saxon positions. The map shows your settlement and the surrounding area in surprising detail. Someone has marked the locations of Saxon ships in the bay and estimated troop positions based on last night's battle. We've dealt them a significant blow, Artorius explains, but many escaped in the darkness. They'll regroup, possibly link up with other Saxon bands in the area. His finger traces the coastline north of your settlement. We need to know if they have other ships arriving, whether they're abandoning their plans or doubling down. You study the map, identifying features you know intimately, the hidden coves where fishing boats shelter during storms, the old smugglers' paths that wind through coastal cliffs, the marshlands that can trap the unwary in deceptively solid-looking ground. There's a ridge here, you indicate a position overlooking the bay, with good visibility of the entire coastline. It's accessible by a path few outsiders know. Artorius nods approvingly. Perfect. Take a small group, no more than 5. Observe and report back. Do not engage unless absolutely necessary. The mission is straightforward. Gather intelligence on Saxon movements to inform Artorius's next steps. You select 4 companions, 2 of Bedwyre's scouts who survived the battle, and 2 hunters from your settlement who know the local terrain. Within the hour, your small party slips out of the hill fort, moving carefully through wooded areas to avoid any Saxon patrols. The ridge you mentioned to Artorius rises about 2 miles north of your settlement, providing an excellent vantage point while remaining hidden among scrubby trees and rock outcroppings. By midday, you're in position, lying flat against sun-warmed stone as you observe the activity below. What you see sends a chill through you despite the summer heat. The Saxon ships remain in the bay, but they've been joined by 5 more, larger vessels capable of carrying greater numbers of warriors and supplies. On the beach, Saxons have established a proper camp with leather tents and cooking fires. This is no mere raid, but the beginnings of a permanent settlement. More concerning still is the activity at the burned-out ruins of your settlement. Saxon workers, not warriors but craftspeople and labourers, are clearing debris, salvaging usable materials and marking out new building plots. Women and children move among them. Saxon families come to claim British land as their own. They're settling in, one of Bedwyre's scouts whispers, his voice tight with anger. Making our homes theirs. You nod grimly. This confirms Artorius's suspicion. The Saxons aren't simply raiders but colonizers, intent on establishing permanent control over coastal Britain before pushing inland. After observing for several hours, recording troop numbers, defensive preparations, and the arrival patterns of new ships, you lead your party back toward the hill fort. The information you carry will shape Artorius's strategy, not just for tomorrow's battle, but for the months of campaign ahead. Upon your return, you report directly to Artorius, who listens intently as you describe what you've seen. His expression remains impassive, but you note the tightening of his jaw and the coldness that enters his grey eyes when you mention the Saxon families settling in the ruins of your home. So, they commit fully to this invasion, he says when you finish. Not content with raiding our shores, they now bring their households, claiming our land as if it were unpeopled wilderness. What will you do? you ask, aware of the presumption in questioning him directly but needing to know his intentions for your homeland. Artorius studies the map, updated now with your fresh intelligence. We must strike before they fully establish themselves. Tomorrow at dawn. He looks up, meeting your gaze. The people of your settlement, will they fight alongside us to reclaim their homes? Without question. Good. We'll need every sword arm, every bow. He straightens, decision made. Rest tonight, tomorrow we take back what is yours. That evening, a council of war convenes in the hill fort's central area. Artorius addresses not just his officers, but all who will participate in the coming battle. His cavalry, the settlement's fighters, even those women who have chosen to take up arms. Your family is there, your father with his spear, your mother with her knowledge of healing herbs, your sister organizing supplies despite her pregnancy. Artorius outlines his plan clearly, using terms anyone can understand, not just trained warriors. The cavalry will strike from the north and south simultaneously, dividing the Saxon forces. Settlement fighters will follow, targeting the Saxon camp while avoiding the ship landing area where enemy numbers are greatest. Our advantage is knowledge of the land, Artorius emphasizes. Use it, draw them into unfamiliar terrain, separate them from their companions. A Saxon warrior alone, lost in British woods, is just a man, and men can be defeated. Questions follow, practical concerns about timing, signals, fallback positions if things go wrong. Artorius answers each patiently, adjusting the plan based on local knowledge offered by settlement members. This is not a Roman general dictating orders, but a British leader forging consensus, ensuring everyone understands their role and the importance of their contribution. As the council concludes, people break into smaller groups to prepare for tomorrow's battle. Weapons are sharpened, armor repaired, final meals shared. The atmosphere is solemn but determined. These people have tasted victory once, however narrow, and believe it possible again. You seek out Bedwyr, finding him propped against cushions in the healer's area, his wounded side heavily bandaged but his mind clear and alert. He listens intently as you describe your scouting mission and Artorius's battle plan. Solid strategy, he approves. Hit them from multiple directions, confuse their command, then press the advantage. He shifts, wincing as the movement pulls at his wound. I should be there. You will be, you assure him. Next time, there will be many battles before this is over. Bedwyr's scarred face twists in a wry smile. True enough, this is just the beginning. His expression sobers. You've come far since that first night on the beach. Remember how terrified you were? You nod, recalling vividly your fear during that first Saxon encounter months ago. I'm still afraid, you admit. But it's different now. I know what to do with the fear. That's what separates warriors from others, Bedwyr says quietly. Not the absence of fear, but mastering it, using it. He reaches out, clasping your forearm in the warrior's grip. Lead well tomorrow. Those settlement fighters will look to you, one of their own, who has ridden with the dragon cavalry. The responsibility settles on your shoulders, heavy but not crushing. Months ago, it would have terrified you. Now, you accept it as part of who you have become. Dawn breaks clear and cool, mist rising from the river valleys, promising another warm summer day. The hill fort stirs with purposeful activity as warriors prepare for battle, checking weapons and armor one final time. Families say tight-lipped goodbyes, knowing that some who leave will not return. Your mother approaches as you secure your sword belt, her face composed despite the worry in her eyes. She carries a small pouch similar to the one containing your dragon talisman. For wounds, she explains, pressing it into your hand. Yarrow to stop bleeding, comfrey for healing, willow bark for pain, just in case. You tuck the pouch securely into your belt beside the dragon carving. I'll be careful, you promise, knowing how inadequate the words are against a mother's fear. Your father joins you, spear in hand, ready to march despite his age and lingering weakness. Your protests died yesterday when you realized how important this is to him, reclaiming his home, proving to himself that he is still a man who can protect what he loves. Artorius calls the order to move out. The cavalry mounts up, their horses stamping impatiently, sensing the tension in their riders. Settlement fighters form into groups, each led by one of Artorius's experienced warriors. You find yourself leading 24 men and women, neighbors, childhood friends, people who watched you grow up and now look to you for guidance in battle. The march to the settlement is conducted in silence, each person lost in their own thoughts, preparing mentally for what lies ahead. As you approach the final ridge overlooking your home, Artorius signals a halt. Scout reports confirm the Saxon positions are unchanged since yesterday. Their main force concentrated near the ships, smaller groups occupying the ruins of the settlement, work parties continuing the clearing and rebuilding process. Remember the plan, Artorius says, his voice carrying just far enough for all to hear without alerting the enemy below. Cavalry divides their forces. Settlement fighters reclaim the ruins. Hold position there. Do not pursue toward the ships unless ordered. Nods all around. The plan is simple by necessity. Battle chaos makes complex strategies impractical. Success will depend on timing, courage, and a measure of luck. Artorius mounts his white stallion, drawing his sword, that same fine blade you first saw months ago at your settlement's meeting stone. In the morning light, it seems to glow with its own inner fire, a sight that stirs something primal in all who see it. "For Britain!" Artorius calls, raising the sword high. "For Britain!" The response comes from hundreds of throats, a roar of defiance against those who would take your homeland. The cavalry splits as planned, half following Artorius north around the settlement, half circling south with Kai leading. The settlement fighters advance directly toward the ruins, using the cover of morning mist and familiar terrain to approach undetected for as long as possible. Discovery is inevitable, of course. A Saxon sentry spots your advance when you're still 100 paces from the outer buildings. His warning shout alerts others, and within moments, Saxon warriors are forming a hasty defensive line among the burned shells of roundhouses. But they're too few, too scattered. Many of their fighters remain at the beach, guarding the ships and camp. Before they can organize properly, Artorius's cavalry hits them from the north, while Kai's riders strike from the south. Caught between three attacking forces, the Saxons in the settlement break, some fleeing toward the beach, others standing to fight in small, desperate groups. You lead your contingent through familiar streets now made alien by destruction. The roundhouse where you grew up is nothing but a charred circle on the ground. The communal bakehouse has collapsed into a pile of scorched stones. The meeting place where you first saw Artorius is littered with broken pottery and discarded Saxon tools. Anger rises in your chest, hot and clarifying. This was your home. These strangers had no right to destroy it, to attempt rebuilding it in their own image. The anger fuels your sword arm as you engage a Saxon warrior blocking your path. He's skilled but surprised by your ferocity, falling back step by step until his heel catches on a piece of debris. As he stumbles, your blade finds the gap between his helmet and mail shirt. All around you, similar scenes play out as settlement fighters reclaim their home street by street, building by building. They know every corner, every alley, every shortcut through what was once a close-knit community. The Saxons, new to this landscape, find themselves disoriented, separated from their comrades, vulnerable to attacks from unexpected directions. Your father fights nearby, his spear work economical and effective despite his age. He takes no joy in killing, you can see that in his face, but there is grim satisfaction in driving invaders from the land he has farmed his entire life. Within an hour, the settlement is secured. Saxon bodies lie among the ruins, while survivors have fled toward the beach where the main Saxon force has formed a defensive perimeter around their ships and camp. Artorius orders the cavalry to pull back to the settlement, establishing a defensive line of your own. This isn't a withdrawal, but a strategic repositioning. The narrow confines of the settlement negates the Saxons' numerical advantage, forcing them to attack through easily defended streets if they wish to reclaim the ground. They'll come, Artorius predicts, surveying the Saxon position from the remains of the settlement's watchtower. Their war leader cannot afford to lose face by abandoning their foothold here. When their reinforcements arrive from the ships to the north, they'll attack in force. And then, you ask, wondering if this will be another desperate defensive stand like the hill fort battle. Artorius's smile is cold and predatory, and then we draw them in, let them commit fully to the attack, and spring the trap. The trap, you learn, is already in place. While you and the settlement fighters reclaimed the ruins, Artorius sent swift riders to the hill fort with orders for those left behind. Even now, a force of hill fort defenders is circling through the forest to position themselves behind the Saxon beach camp, ready to cut off retreat to the ships when the main battle begins. It's a risky strategy. If the Saxons detect the flanking force too early, they might crush it before Artorius can provide support. If they don't attack the settlement as predicted, the plan falls apart. But war is always a gamble, and Artorius has calculated the odds as best he can. The waiting is almost worse than fighting. Hours pass as you help organise the settlement's defences, positioning archers on remaining rooftops, establishing barricades at key intersections, ensuring everyone knows the fallback points if sections of the line collapse. All the while, you watch the Saxon camp, where similar preparations are visibly underway. Their war leader, the massive man with the horned helmet who escaped the hill fort battle, strides among his warriors, rallying them for the coming assault. Midday comes and goes. The summer sun beats down mercilessly, making armour hot to the touch and increasing the thirst of warriors on both sides. Water carriers move among Artorius's forces, ensuring no one becomes dangerously dehydrated. Similar activity is visible in the Saxon camp. Why don't they attack? Your father wonders aloud, standing beside you at a barricade that blocks what was once the street leading to your family's roundhouse. They're waiting for the tide, you realise, noticing the position of the sun and the water level in the bay. When it turns, the ships to the north will be able to land their warriors directly on the beach near the settlement rather than further up the coast. Your father nods, understanding the tactical advantage this would provide. How long? You gauge the sun's position. An hour, perhaps less. Word is passed to Artorius, who adjusts his plans accordingly, sending runners to ensure the flanking force is in position before the Saxon reinforcements can land. The attack, when it finally comes, is heralded by battle horns from the Saxon lines, deep, booming notes that echo across the ruined settlement. Their warriors advance in a solid mass, shields overlapping, spears bristling from the formation. Behind the shield wall come axemen and archers, ready to exploit any breach in your defences. Hold until they commit, Artorius orders, his voice carrying along the defensive line. Make them come to us. The Saxon advance is methodical, their shield wall maintaining formation despite having to navigate through narrow streets and around ruins. When they reach the first barricade, they don't immediately attack, but begin working to dismantle it while maintaining their defensive formation. Clever, Artorius observes from his position near you. Their war leader has learned from the hill-fort battle. He won't waste lives in frontal assaults if he can help it. But this cautious approach works in your favour, giving the flanking force more time to get into position. Artorius watches the Saxon movements carefully, waiting for the perfect moment to spring his trap. That moment comes when the Saxon reinforcements from the northern ships finally land and begin moving to join the main attack. Now, Artorius commands. Horns sound from the settlement line, 3 short blasts followed by 1 long note. It's the signal for the flanking force to attack the Saxon camp and ships. Almost simultaneously, Artorius orders a controlled withdrawal from the outermost barricades, creating the impression that the settlement defenders are being pushed back by the Saxon advance. The Saxon war leader takes the bait, committing more warriors to what appears to be a successful push into the settlement. He doesn't realise that Artorius is deliberately drawing his forces away from their camp and ships until it's too late. The sounds of fighting erupt from the beach area. The flanking force has engaged. Confusion ripples through the Saxon ranks as warriors realise their base is under attack. Their war leader hesitates, torn between continuing the advance into the settlement and turning back to protect their ships, their only means of escape if the battle turns against them. In that moment of indecision, Artorius strikes. The cavalry, held in reserve behind the settlement's defensive line, suddenly charges through gaps in the barricades, smashing into the now disorganized Saxon formation. Settlement fighters follow, no longer defending but attacking with the fury of people reclaiming their homes. Caught between Artorius's main force and the flanking attack on their camp, the Saxons' discipline collapses. What began as an organised assault devolves into scattered pockets of resistance as warriors try to regroup or flee individually. The Saxon war leader makes a final stand near what was once the settlement's meeting stone, gathering his personal guard around him. You find yourself drawn to this confrontation, fighting alongside Artorius as he engages the massive Saxon directly. It's a battle of contrasts. Artorius mounted on his white stallion, his movements fluid and precise, the Saxon war leader on foot, huge and powerful, his axe sweeping in devastating arcs that force even skilled opponents to give ground. Around them, British and Saxon warriors clash in a chaotic melee, each seeking to protect their leader while defeating the enemy. Your focus narrows to the immediate threats, a Saxon warrior charging from your left, another trying to flank Artorius while he concentrates on their leader. You meet the first with a shield bash that knocks him off balance, following with a sword thrust to the throat. The second falls to a quick slash across the back of his knees, dropping him into the mud where he's finished by one of the settlement fighters. Through gaps in the swirling combat, you glimpse the central duel, Artorius circling on horseback, looking for an opening, the Saxon war leader roaring challenges, his axe a constant threat that keeps the mounted warrior at bay. The decisive moment comes not through skill or strength, but chance. The Saxon leader steps back onto a loose stone, momentarily losing his perfect balance. It's a tiny opening, lasting less than a heartbeat, but Artorius seizes it. His sword flashes down, catching the Saxon between neck and shoulder, driving through mail links into flesh beneath. The massive warrior staggers but doesn't fall, blood flowing freely from the wound. He swings his axe in a desperate counterattack. Artorius leans aside in the saddle, the axe blade passing so close it shears a lock of hair from his head. His second stroke takes the Saxon in the face, ending the fight instantly. With their leader fallen, the remaining Saxons lose all cohesion. Some throw down their weapons in surrender, others flee toward the beach, only to find their ships burning and their camp overrun by the flanking force. By mid-afternoon, the battle is decisively won. The settlement is reclaimed, the Saxon invasion force shattered. The aftermath is both victorious and sombre. Warriors who moments ago fought for their lives now tend wounds, count losses, secure prisoners. The dead are laid out with as much dignity as battlefield conditions allow. British fighters returned to the settlement they died defending. Saxon warriors carried to the beach for burial or burning according to their customs. You find your father sitting quietly on a broken wall that once formed part of your family's roundhouse. His spear rests across his knees, its tip darkened with dried blood. He looks up as you approach, his face lined with exhaustion but his eyes clear. "It's over," he says simply. "This battle," you agree, settling beside him. "Not the war," he nods, understanding the distinction. "But we've shown them Britain won't fall easily. That counts for something." From this vantage point, you can see much of the settlement and the bay beyond. Smoke rises from burning Saxon ships, their dragon-headed prows blackened and crumbling. Among the ruins, people are already beginning to clear debris, marking out spaces where new roundhouses will rise. Life continuing despite destruction, the eternal pattern of human resilience. Artorius moves through the settlement, speaking with fighters and civilians alike, offering praise, comfort, or practical assistance as needed. When he reaches you and your father, he dismounts, leading his white stallion by the reins. "Your people fought well," he tells your father. "They've earned the right to rebuild in peace." "For how long?" your father asks bluntly. "The Saxons will return." "Yes," Artorius acknowledges. "But not here, not soon. They've learned this coast is well defended." He surveys the ruined settlement. "I'll leave 20 of my warriors to help with rebuilding and provide protection. The rest of us must continue the campaign elsewhere." Other coastal settlements face similar threats. Your father nods, accepting this as the best possible outcome under the circumstances. "We'll make this place strong again," he promises, "a beacon of British resilience for all who sail these shores." Artorius smiles slightly. "That's what we need, not just warriors, but people determined to rebuild, to maintain our way of life despite the challenges ahead." He turns to you. "And you? Will you return to the dragon cavalry or stay to help your settlement recover?" The question catches you by surprise. You've been so focused on immediate survival that you haven't considered what comes after. Looking around at the familiar landscape of your childhood, now scarred by battle but already showing signs of renewal, you feel the pull of home. Yet, there's another pull too. The knowledge that what Artorius builds is larger than any single settlement. A vision for all of Britain that needs defenders and believers. "I'll ride with you," you decide, feeling the rightness of it settle in your chest. "My family is safe now. The settlement will rebuild. But there are other families, other settlements that need what we can offer." Your father reaches out, clasping your arm. "A worthy choice," he says, his approval warming you like summer sun. "Your mother won't like it, but she'll understand." That evening, as twilight softens the harsh evidence of battle, the people of your settlement gather around fires built amid the ruins. Food is shared, supplies brought from the hill fort supplemented by hunting and foraging. Stories are told of the day's victory, of ancient heroes, of plans for rebuilding. For a few precious hours, the shadow of war recedes, allowing space for community to reassert itself. Your family sits together near one of the smaller fires. Your mother has spent the day tending wounded from both sides, her knowledge of healing herbs saving lives that might otherwise have been lost. Your sister, her pregnancy now in its final months, organised the distribution of food and clean water. Your father, despite his exhaustion, helped identify those Saxon prisoners who might be useful in rebuilding, craftsmen and farmers rather than warriors, people who might integrate into British society given the chance. As darkness deepens, Artorius joins your family circle, accepting a simple wooden bowl of stew with thanks. He eats without ceremony, one warrior among many, though conversations around you quiet as people notice his presence. What happens to the prisoners? Your mother asks him directly, her healer's compassion extending even to former enemies. Those who swear loyalty may remain under supervision, Artorius answers. Britain needs farmers, craftsmen, builders, skills many of these Saxons possess. Those who refuse will be sent back across the sea with a message for their people. And the message? Your father inquires. Artorius's expression hardens slightly, that Britain is not abandoned, not vulnerable, not theirs for the taking, that each mile of British soil will be defended by people who love this land and will die before surrendering it. Your mother studies him thoughtfully. You speak of Britain as if it were a single entity, yet we've always been many peoples, tribes, kingdoms, regions with their own customs and allegiances. True, Artorius acknowledges, and that diversity is our strength, not our weakness. But we must also recognize what binds us together, this land, its history, our shared determination to shape our own future rather than having it imposed by outsiders. It's a vision both simple and revolutionary, unity without uniformity, common purpose that doesn't erase local identity. You think of the dragon cavalry, where warriors from different tribes and backgrounds fight together, each bringing their unique skills to a shared cause. As the fire burns lower, casting dancing shadows on ruined walls that will soon be rebuilt, conversations turn to practical matters. How quickly roundhouses can be constructed, which crops might still be planted despite the disrupted season, what materials can be salvaged from the destruction. Artorius listens more than he speaks, absorbing the concerns and hopes of ordinary people whose lives have been upended by forces beyond their control. This, you realize, is what sets him apart from other leaders you've known or heard about. His genuine interest in the people he protects, his recognition that grand strategy must ultimately serve very human needs. When he finally rises to return to his command tent, Artorius pauses, looking down at your family with an expression that mingles respect and something like envy. You have what we all fight for, he says quietly. Not just land or possessions, but connection, community. Remember that in the difficult days ahead. With that, he departs, his tall figure soon lost in the darkness between fires. You watch him go, understanding that Artorius carries a solitude that comes with leadership, present among his people, but always slightly apart, bearing responsibilities few can truly comprehend. Morning brings renewed purpose. The settlement begins to rise from its ashes, temporary shelters constructed from salvaged materials, work parties clearing debris, hunters and gatherers bringing in food to supplement dwindling supplies. Artorius prepares his cavalry for departure, leaving behind the promised contingent of warriors to help with protection and rebuilding. You say goodbye to your family beside the remains of your childhood home. Your mother weeps quietly, but does not try to dissuade you, recognizing the path you've chosen. Your sister embraces you fiercely, making you promise to return before her child is old enough to walk. Your father stands straight and proud, the spear that served him well in battle now repurposed as a tool for marking out new building foundations. Remember who you are, he tells you, clasping your arm in farewell. No matter where Artorius's campaign takes you, you are of this place, these people. I will, you promise, the words feeling like a vow more binding than any formal oath. As you mount Awen, now as familiar to you as your own heartbeat, you take a final look at the settlement, not as it is in its ruined state, but as it will be when rebuilt, and as it was in your childhood memories. This place has shaped you, given you roots that will sustain you through whatever challenges lie ahead. Artorias gives the order to move out. The dragon cavalry forms into marching column, blue cloaks catching the morning sunlight, dragon emblems snapping in the breeze. You take your place among them, no longer an uncertain recruit, but a seasoned warrior with a purpose beyond mere survival. As you ride away, following the old Roman road that leads to other settlements, other battles, other moments of both sorrow and triumph, you understand that you're part of something larger than yourself, a story that began long before your birth and will continue long after your death. It's the story of Britain itself, shaped by Roman legions and native tribes, by ancient traditions and new possibilities, by leaders like Artorias who see beyond immediate victory to the generations yet unborn, a complex, often painful story of a land and its people struggling to define themselves in changing times. Centuries later, when Artorias has become Arthur, when his practical leadership has transformed into magical legends of swords in stones and ladies in lakes, when his diverse band of warriors has become the Knights of the Round Table, something essential will remain true. The story of a man who fought not for personal glory, but for a vision of Britain that honoured its past while creating space for its future. But that legendary Arthur lies far ahead. For now, there is only Artorias and his dragon cavalry, riding toward the next challenge in the long struggle to protect a land they love. And you among them, your sword at your side, your heart full of both determination and hope, ready to play your part in the unfolding story of Britain AD. Your eyes grow heavy as the rhythmic movement of your horse lulls you towards sleep. Even warriors must rest when they can, gathering strength for battles yet to come. As consciousness begins to fade, you hear Bedwyer's voice from months ago, his words now a comforting mantra rather than a warning. Rest while you can, young one. The real work begins tomorrow. And so you do, secure in the knowledge that whatever tomorrow brings, you face it not alone, but as part of something enduring, a legacy being written with each hoofbeat, each heartbeat, each moment of courage in uncertain times.